got the power. Blow up. I got the power. Black power. Power, power. Unity is the key. First to create the universe. First to be first. First to give birth. First on the earth. First to make it work. First to get it right. First to write a verse. First to do research. First to rehearse. First things first. Greetings. We're gonna get right to it because we got a lot on the plate, a lot on the table. So if you got a couple of hours to spare, a couple of hours to get some knowledge, I want you to hang with your brother, the brother like no other. Elder Blacklight. Look like it's delayed. My mouth is not catching up with my words. I wonder why that is. But yet and still, we got the flavor to say, yeah. And the kind of knowledge you won't get in college. So, the name of this transmission is Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde, February the 1st, 2024. Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde, aka Israel and Allah. Let me start off by saying this. O ye people, adore your guardian Lord who created you and those who came before you, that ye may have a chance to learn righteousness. Let me say that again. O ye people, adore your guardian Lord who created you and those who came before you, that ye may have a chance to learn righteousness. Right on. Let me also add this. My word is my bond. I will give my life before my word shall fail. I am an FOI soldier in the Nation of Islam. My duty is to unite my people, black people, and protect the women and children of my nation. I will perform my duty faithfully, regardless to whom or what. My life and my death are all for Allah, and I will be loyal and obedient to the Supreme Being, Allah, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, whom I submit all authority over me. I fear none but Allah. To him I give my allegiance. To him alone I submit my will to do his will, the Lord of all the world. And oh Allah, guide us on the right path, on the straight path, on the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favor, and not on the path whom thy wrath is brought down, nor on the path of those that go astray. And may the peace and blessings be upon all those that are tuned in to Elder Blacklight Soul School. You might have to get a pad and pencil out. We're gonna take you on a journey. We're gonna take you on a journey this evening. What we got up on the menu is, I still can't get the movie Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but we got enough and I'm going to try to show you where this movie Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Spencer Tracy, I want to show you that Jekyll and this story are parallel. The story of Jekyll grafting the devil is parallel to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, it goes a little deeper than grafting colors, grafting the black man, grafting colors out of the black man to make the white man. It's really talking about righteousness. And we're going to give you the words from Master Farad Muhammad talking about Jekyll grafting. But first we're going to play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then we're going to go to Jekyll Supreme Wisdom Plus, grafting the white man from the black man. Now, I'm going to give you my little 2 cents, put my little 2 cents in right now. Because we're going back to the root of the Caucasian. Now, I know that the white man haven't told his children, because most of the white people don't know their roots. They've been told by the elder white people that they were the first on the earth. Now there were a creation, and then there was a created man, and then there was a made man. The created man is direct descendant from the creator, the originator. And the made man was a grafting out process, birth control process, by a scientist or a god, black god called Jacob, aka Yakub. Why did he make the devil? Because at a very early age, see, they were wiser, smarter back in those days. You know, Jacob was playing with some magnets at the age 6, and he already had it in his mind that he was going to make a people, because a certain percentage of black people are always dissatisfied. So he knew that there was a black germ and a brown germ, a dominant gene and a recessive gene, another way of putting it. And he wanted to bring out the dissatisfaction and make it flesh, evil. And then have the evil rule the righteous for 6,000 years, and then disintegrate himself. Getting back to what's happening now in Palestine and in the Gaza Strip or the Bank. Getting back to that, you hear the Israelis talking about a Samson bomb. Because Samson, you know, he was blinded by Delilah, and at the end he ended up collapsing a building, a temple, on Delilah and her crew, and himself too. And then he got another suicide mission he's on. He gave it a code name. I don't forget the code name of it, but we're gonna go to AS Kinsley. He's talking about Israelis murdered their own people on October the 7th, 2023. Now, I know this is not a coincidence, but October the 7th is the birth date of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now you got 3 sevens. Well, 2 sevens. You got, 3 sevens. October the 7th. In the year 2023, that adds up to 7. And then you got the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's birth date, and you can mark that down as 777s. And we got a couple of more videos we want to show. We got one showing in how America is corrupt. And the reason why they call it the end times is because it's the end of the white man's time. You can hardly, his birth rate is at a 0. So he's trying to use us like cattle, keeping us deaf, dumb, and blind. He could go into his bank, blood bank, get our blood, sell our body parts, enslave our women, use us as a proxy to kill each other. And he don't have to do nothing. Because all his army is made up of poor people trying to find a way out the ghetto, trying to find a way out the Hicks. Jobs are limited. So he's waging all kind of tricks, trying to advance the technology and AI so he could use robots and whatnot to control the people, trying to put a chip in you and use that chip to control you. Right now, he know that you ain't woke up yet. I can tell you ain't woke up yet by your conversation on YouTube. I can tell because how you talk. All the entertainers got your mind. As long as they got those entertainers out in front of you, that's who you want to be like. That's who you idolize. And you always want to be an American. Myself, I never did want to be an American. They didn't ask me, do I want to be an American? You know, I was born, my ancestors were slaves. And he gave me his name and his language. And threw my culture and my language and my God out the window. But Master Farad Muhammad came and told us that deep inside of us, we are gods. We are Allah, the master scientist. Now, why would a man come over here from Mecca, a little outside of Mecca, come to Detroit, Black Bottom, and start telling black people that we were gods, that we are the supreme being. We are sons and daughters of the originator and the creator of the heavens and earth. Take a chance on his life Gods bleed like everybody else. But gods are wiser than everybody else. So, and tell us that if he was against us, he wasn't teaching us hate. He was teaching us love of self. He was teaching the truth. That's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, don't mock the Caucasian, which all of them did. Malcolm, you know, and Brother Khalid, Farrakhan. They checked Farrakhan, though. He stopped doing it and joined their team. You know, he didn't have the kind of guts that Khalid and Malcolm had. But Khalid never did turn traitor like Malcolm. He did some foolish things though, but he never did turn traitor. See, the enemy know how you think, black man and woman. They know what's in your mind. That's why you are easily fooled. But the ones that internalize the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, given to him through the Lord of all the worlds, the supreme being of this day and age and time, Master Farah Muhammad, the ones that internalize those teachings will never be tricked again. It's hard to trick us. So we were given the mission to put you in that same mindset that we got. We were given permission to, or mission, to unite the black people and to protect our women and children. So that's why Allah is showing us the extreme evilness of the Israelis committing genocide, showing you that the Palestinian men can't protect their women and children. And the women and children are the ones that's getting killed, murdered the most. Why they getting murdered the most? Because the women produces the next generation. She's the teacher and the nourisher of the man's offspring, of the man's reproduction. So they go in the hospitals, kill up all the babies, murder all the babies, murder all the women, all the young boys, so they can't grow up. And the women can't have babies. And the men can't do nothing. They dependent on other people to help them. And white man, and black man, you in the same shape over here in America. Although most of you got gats. You got gats and you strapped. But you don't make the gats. That'll hold them off for a minute, but you disorganized. You know, the little ammunition you got and the little gats you got will hold them off for a minute. But they could turn off your water, turn off your electricity. Because you don't control it. So maybe that's why, Allah is permitting me to talk to you. But let me tell you this. It might not reach the right ears because there are those among us recognize truth when they hear it. And they might be called to action by my words. Because the white man know that y'all ain't gonna do nothing. He show you all of this happening. All you do is protest because you love America so much and you want to hold America together. But you see the America's falling apart. So Allah, you know, he's most patient, and he let the devils go against devils. Like Texas, like Biden and Trump. All them gangsters, all of them are evil. That's why I don't want to be a part of an evil, corrupt system. I don't want to be aiding and abetting devils, corruption. I pray to Allah that this transmission get to people of action, of righteous action. We need righteous black unity in our community. Righteous black unity in the black community. And if we unite and separate and start building on our own nation of righteousness, we ain't got a fire shot. But if you don't heed my words, you're gonna have to fight for your life. You don't make the bullets, you don't make none of the weapons, you don't have the advanced weaponry that the Caucasian had. You could turn off your communication, your cell phone or your smartphones. You could turn that off. Then what you gonna do? You should have had your own towers, cell phone towers, or smart towers, your own satellites, your own communication, your own means of water supply, your own water supply, your own energy supply. You trying to vote, you trying to keep him up there about voting. We're going to try to get you out of that. So I want you to pay close attention to what I'm talking about and what you're about to see. It's going to open your eyes. Now the first cut is Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde. It's about maybe 5 minutes, might not even be that long. But it's parallel to the Jekyll story about grafting the white man. But it's all white people in the acting roles. But it's the same thing what Jekyll was trying to do. Trying to get the evil out of us so the evil could destroy itself. So we're gonna go over to the other station while we get set up. It ain't gonna take that long, but I'm gonna play this song, and you can't go wrong. If you stay with me, you could get a pencil and piece of paper because Master Farad, when we go to the Supreme Wisdom Plus, he's gonna be giving out Bible verses concerning Jekyll. So let us go to the other station. In the meantime, I'm gonna play a song I cut. This is gonna be my theme song for a minute. supreme wisdom first.
Master of the day of judgment. I got the power. Low upper. I got the power. Black power. Power, power. Unity is the key. First to create the universe. First to be first. First to give birth. First on the earth. First to make it work. First to give it worth. First to write a verse. First to do research. First to rehearse. First things first.
Let me set it up a little bit for you. Jekyll in the Quran was supreme wisdom. You see these group of elders here were in The supreme wisdom, Allah refers to the elders as his uncle, Yaqub's uncle. And they observed Yaqub playing with 2 pieces of steel. And they were inquisitive, but they knew before Yaqub knew what Yaqub was going to do, because they were gods. They were the circle of the gods, see. And they asked Yaqub or Jacob, what you doing? You know, he said, I'm going to make a man. Now, that's what they're asking. That's what these white guys, they're a group of old men. And the young man is the scientist. He's with his fiance, this Spencer Tracy right here. And let's go to the beginning, and we'll explain a little later what's going on.
Heath was telling me that you're still carrying on with that research work of yours.
I'm afraid Dr. Heath isn't in sympathy, Dr. Cortland.
Well, that's understandable, isn't it? After all, separating the facets of the brain. Rather ambitious, I should call it.
Harry's research hopes to go deeper than the brain, sir. Into something more intangible than the mind, even.
And all that seems to be left is the soul.
All right, then, call it the soul.
The soul?
Come, my dear doctor. Now you're invading my territory.
Well, I suppose I am, sir, but I know that you, for one, wouldn't object if science could be of some assistance to the church.
The church is always grateful for any help, Doctor. Of course, Harry doesn't mean a word of this gentleman. I'm afraid he's pulling our leg.
I should hope so.
I was wondering what poor Jekyll would do if I asked him to elaborate.
I don't mind elaborating. Most of you were in church this morning. If you didn't see that poor chap, you heard him, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. Thank you for your assistance there, Doctor.
Hopelessly insane, obviously. I don't think he was insane. I think there was only one side of him in existence, and that side was expressing it.
Good heavens, which side?
His evil side.
Evil side?
The man had been spiritually distorted through shock. That explosion in the gas main last month. Before that, he was a fine, solid citizen. Gentle and kind with his children, deeply in love with his wife. Since then, he had undergone a complete change. Until this afternoon, I found him completely reverted to the animal.
But look here, Harry, we can clearly understand a shock to the nervous system, but what's that got to do with the soul?
Well, I think the man had been shocked from normal good into complete evil. Now, when I say he was a good man, I don't mean that he hadn't had a bad thought now and then, or that he hadn't committed ordinary transgressions against society. But after all, that's the problem of civilized man's soul, isn't it? That the good and evil in it are constantly fighting one another?
There's a higher source from which the good can find aid in its fight, Doctor.
I realize that, sir, but...
Of course, the Colonel and I have always felt that a person can be good if they wish to be. And, well, otherwise if they don't.
Look here, Jekyll, I simply must get this straight. Well, let me put it this way. Good and evil are so close as to be chained together in the soul. Now, suppose we could break that chain, separate those two selves. Free the good in man and let it go on to its higher destiny, and segregate the bad.
But aren't you a bit presumptuous in assuming that there's evil in all men?
Oh, but isn't that true? Wouldn't we be hypocrites if we didn't admit that? After all, we've all had thoughts that we didn't want published or shouted out loud, and we certainly have had desires that are not confined to a drawing room. Why, as Christians, we admit that man is created weak. That's a perfectly honest problem. Why don't we face it?
Suppose we believe that man's soul has not yet reached its fulfillment. Is it wise? Is it right to tamper with the problem until the Creator himself has solved it in his own mysterious way?
Sir, really, Jekyll, this is very disturbing. Such theories come dangerously close to, well, I hesitate to think what the medical council would be forced to say. Dr. Cortland, advanced theories are always a sore point with the medical council, or even with a queen's physician, especially if there's a comfortable profit in those already established.
Jekyll, if you ask my opinion, young man, this is pure balderdash.
Lady? Oh, I meant to ask.
Has anyone read that poem by this new chap off to watch? Come on.
Now, that's similar to what Yakub was going through when he was creating or telling his uncle and his elders that he was going to make the devil. So let's get to supreme wisdom. Go down here to Yakub and let the words of Allah go deeper into the science of making the devil. And we see Yakub's making of the devil right now in the Gaza Strip. And you see that they're dropping bombs and they're getting ready to start a wider war.
Yakub. You have noticed statements saying Yakub was playing in his uncle's backyard. Well, he also called his uncle father. This is because his father died before he was old enough to know him. So through playing with these magnets, Yakub found what his mission or purpose in life would be. So he told his uncle, saying, "Father, I know that which you know not." His uncle replied, "Yakub, what is it that you know that I know not?" Yakub's reply was, "I am going to make a man when I grow of age," meaning when he finishes the study of genetics. His uncle replied, "Yakub, do you not know that if you make a man other than the original man who is already here on the planet Earth, you will be making the devil himself?" Yakub replied, "Nevertheless, I know that which you know not." From Yakub's continuously saying he knew what his uncle knew not gives one the impression that Yakub's uncle did not know his mission or purpose for being on the planet Earth. And speaking of today, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if some devil didn't tell another that if they set up a birth control system in Liberia, they would make a people other than we originally was. Of course, it wasn't said for righteousness' sake, but for fear we wouldn't have the strength needed to do the hard labor. So, Brother Yakub became of age 12, in other words, came into the knowledge of how he would graft a people, finished all the universities throughout the Holy Land, and began going about converting the dissatisfied black people to his doctrine, which was based on lies and trickery. Genesis 27:35 tells of how he, Yakub, dealt with his said father with subtlety. Genesis 27:36 further shows Yakub taking Esau's birthright. One phase of this birthright was to rule all over the planet Earth, which Yakub's children have done for the last 6,000 years by supplanting. Brother, if we check Yakub's history close enough, we would have to find that he did his job through supplanting. As the most honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, our black brothers and sisters who followed Yakub had no idea that he intended to strip them of their dignity, their birthright, their clothes of knowledge, meaning mind, nor did they have any idea that he, Yakub, would strip them of their clothes for covering their privates or shame. Brother, if we give Yakub's children's actions of today some comparative observation with his works, we can find that for everything he and his scientists did back there is being carried out here today. The only difference is the names have been changed to so-called medical terms or more technical terms or more scientific terms, which in itself is a form of his teachings of high technology of words, etc. To further show or compare Yakub's children with his works of old, we know he stripped the holy black sisters and brothers of their holy garments, which were long robes covering their entire bodies. We see the Lamb today putting our clothes back on us and our sisters. Next, we will put our robes back on. You see, brother, whenever a sister or brother has his or her holy garments on, they must use each other's true selves in order to entice the other. This Mr. Yaqub could not have, for as it took him 600 years to come up with his civilization, so as to entice the brother and sister to commit immoral acts which thereby enabled them to get more children. He made them wear cloth that only covered their privates, leaving more than half of their bodies exposed to the naked eye. Remember, this was in essence an experiment Yaqub was going through. So today, and for the last 410 years, we see Yaqub's children have been experimenting with us in an even more subtle way than their father. A good place to start for reference would be Liberia. We know that Mr. Yaqub set up a rigorous birth control system at the beginning of his civilization by dividing the brown babies from the black, the brown from the reds from the yellow. Now bear in mind these are only the major solutions, for there were 9 more lighter colors that came after these. Many places in the Bible will show that a people were grafted from another without any uncertainty. For instance, the Acts 17:26 shows Mr. Yaqub must have made or grafted his people, white man, from the black, for Allah himself created all nations of one blood. Of course, these nations are the brown, red, and yellow. The fifth parties are not really a nation, but a race, a group of 400 million people beast racing with time. In the same verse it shows that, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, these Yaqub grafted devils were doomed, or limited from the day they were grafted. The bounds of their habitation on our planet Earth was 6,000, and we bear witness he is some 50 years overdue, and only Allah is the best knower. As to how many more days he will be allowed to dwell here in this wilderness, called Earth in the Bible to throw us off. Verse 42 of the same chapter further proves it was the lighter babies being separated from the dark. And it says, when the cattle were feeble equals light, remember the lighter they got, the feebler in reality they were, he, Yaqub, put them not in, meaning not among the dark. The feeble was Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's, Yaqub's. This can be easily understood, because Yaqub was a jet black man. Stronger Yaqub's, meaning like Yaqub. If there be further doubt in our minds to this, and we have an understanding of the Bible, we can see where it was predicted that we, the black people, had 2 nations in our sperm, called womb in Genesis 25:23. In the very same verse it also shows that one people shall be stronger of the 2, and for that matter, all others. Verse 23 also further shows the elder would serve the young. We bear witness that we are the elder, for it has not been recorded in history our beginning, over here or over there. Yet we know that we have served a boy who was the young 6 days old. Mr. Yaqub also got an idea about making devils by seeing that his parents had produced a light and a dark baby, as shown in Genesis 25:25. Mr. Yaqub lived to be 150 years of age. We would expect the Bible to tell exactly, but I think Genesis 5:3 comes close enough, considering whose version it is. Yaqub goes through the Holy Land teaching. After going throughout the Holy Land teaching and consorting the dissatisfied of the holy people for so long, the word got around about he and his teachings. Somehow he was thrown in jail. Of course, this didn't stop his doctrine from being spread, for his followers carried the word on. Yaqub was the God of his people who were longing for a change. They were dissatisfied and diligent to Yaqub's teachings. Therefore, to jail him or them could not and did not stop his ideology. While Mr. Yaqub was in jail, he continued his teaching. The word got to the captain, who then consulted the Sultan, telling him that there was a man other than the original man, who was already on the planet Earth, and that he, Yaqub, was causing unrest in the prison. I hope you can see this being said about we the Muslims, too. So the Sultan, being a wise man, consulted Mr. Yaqub. Upon his entry, he asked among the prisoners, who is it that is called Yaqub? Yaqub was a large black brother and very bold. He, Yaqub, stepped forward and said, I am called Yaqub. The wise Sultan then said, As-salamu alaikum. Mr. Yaqub's reply was, Wa alaikum salam. The Sultan proceeded to ask Yaqub about his plan of making a people unlike the original people, who were already here on the planet Earth. Yaqub told him, yes, I am going to make a people. So the Sultan said, "You realize that we can't have such here in the Holy Land." Then Yaqub told him if he would give him and his followers land and supplies to last them 20 years, they would leave. This is shown to us in Genesis 30:26. Yaqub asks for his followers. Genesis 30:28 could be giving us an idea of what the wise Sultan said to Yaqub, such as, "How much do you need?" etc. Genesis 30:32 shows Mr. Yaqub telling the Sultan he would take away all the dissatisfaction if he, the Sultan, would provide him with the necessary supplies. This or these versions can be gone deeper into, but our aim is only to give you a little insight. The mosque can show you all things needed. Allah be with us. We, before long, will be able to eat from the Lamb's table without interference from the oppressors of truth and righteousness. Brother, notice, just as Mr. Yaqub told the wise Sultan of that region, he would relieve him of all his troubles if he would supply him and his followers with land, etc. I ask you, is not the most honorable Elijah Muhammad telling this government to give us land and 20 years supplies, and we will leave him, thereby ridding him of the dissatisfaction which is among him, the accursed? Of course, you realize that we, the followers of the Lamb, are the dissatisfied. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad is many things in one, too many. It depends on how close we observe him. Now we know he is not going to do as Yaqub, graft the people through supplantation or crossbreeding. We see what Yaqub did with his few degrees of knowledge to do evil. Now, how much more can and will the Lamb do good with supreme knowledge and wisdom? Brother, we all will think as we will. The profoundness of our thought depends on how we apply or call on our mentality. If we should think deep enough and pure enough, we will find the Lamb, too, is making a people, not through tricks, crossbreeding force, but through knowledge of self, God, and the devil. What were we before we heard and started living the teachings of the Lamb? Does not even our furthest associates see the change in us, the difference after we accept Almighty Allah through the teachings of the Lamb? This is the physical change. Now, is there any need of our speaking of the mental change? Yaqub made a people mentally and physically through birth control, etc. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad is making a people mentally and physically through knowledge of self. He, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, has said we need not make any excuses for some of us being spotted up, because we bear witness that we've been like sheep in the midst of sex-perverted beasts. So he is teaching us to separate ourselves, and when we are separated mentally and physically, I don't believe we will have to be told how to get all our clothes back on, thereby going all the way back home, jet black. A heap see, but only a few realize and will admit that it must be for the best that we all do not have all of our clothes for knowledge and clothes for covering. It is indeed a pity to see those so blessed be so rebellious against their true identity. Yaqub on the island of Patmos. Upon arrival to the island of Patmos, Mr. Yaqub verifies that he was there in Revelation 1:19, or Pelon, located in the Aegean Sea. He started his government, or staff, headed by a doctor, a priest, a nurse, and a cremator, as shown in Exodus 1:15, the nurse. Exodus 1:9-10 shows Yaqub talking to his other staff members, and wonder can we recall when the Pharaoh of this day said the same thing about us, the tribe of Shabazz. Remember Hitler Herbert Hoover when he was in office? The doctor's job was to take blood tests of the people who wanted to be married. If two black people came to be married, he would pass them without question. But if a black man and a sister of light complexion tried to get married, he, the doctor, would go behind a screen, come back and tell them there were defects in their blood. Serpent liar. Now, if by chance these couples whom he turned down decided to live together or slip around together, Mr. Yaqub didn't make an issue out of it. He simply had their heads cut off. Today, wonder why before we can get a marriage license to marry our own queen, incidentally, we must get an approved blood test. Believe me, the accursed Shaitan has been a very obedient son to his father Yaqub, for he has carried out his works to a T. Instead of going behind a screen today, the doctor goes into what we call his laboratory, and after a certain number of different shades has passed, or after a certain quarter of the year, he tells some sort of lie to try and hinder a brother and sister from so-called legally marrying. Of course, this has not worked as it did in Yakub's time, for his son is not allowed to such open actions as his father, for he would be warring against his very nature, which is to be a fornicator. After a man or woman commits fornication or adultery for 2,000 years, it is useless to think they would be against such in the latter 4,050 years. The priest's job was as is today, to marry, counsel, lie, etc. to the couple and spread Yakub's doctrine. Is not he too trying to follow his father's teachings up to this very day, trying to deceive even the elect chosen of Allah, going before and behind the truth bearer, trying to change the truth to a lie? All praise is due to Allah, for this only works among the weak of us, who then is not worthy of Allah's truth. Yakub told the nurse that she was to stick a sharp instrument in the mold, which is the tender part of all the dark black baby boys' heads. She was to help deliver the baby. She was called the midwife, Exodus 1:16. She, being an original sister, having a conscience, still having fear of Allah, went to Mr. Yakub and questioned him, asking him what if the child's family is happy over him, whether he be light or dark, boy or girl. She also did this because she did not like the idea of murdering her brothers and sisters. And seeing that Yakub's followers were well disciplined and he was such a master at lies and trickery, she, the nurse, was convinced when he told her to tell the young brother's parents that it was being taken to Mecca to be blessed so that its seed to come would be blessed, thereby seemingly relieving her of her duty of murdering them. She was to, instead of sticking the holy black brother in the mold of the head, to take him to the cremator, who was to cremate the child without question. About 600 years after Mr. Yakub set up his staff and started his civilization, in the year 9000 of our calendar, his scientists were successful in crafting a pale skin, showing no life. They had thick woolly hair, thick lips, big nose, looking like albinos of today. This tie can be seen through the light the devil shows for an albino, and the dislike an albino has for him, especially when the albino has knowledge of himself, other than that they may get along as the hand in the glove. By doing this, Mr. Yakub could control how many black babies would be born in a year or years, or even down to how many would be born per hour, day or week or month. His separation of the colors from each other is shown in Genesis 30:40. In the same book, verse 37, it shows that he had begun working with the brown, red, and yellow to make the white, Caucasian, appear that was in the rods, their sperms. Through these things, Mr. Yakub came up with the devil. Today, his children are still trying to make a people. They have developed all kinds of pills. They have breed USAS cattle AS did Yakub on the island of Peelan to those who follow them. If we watch our papers, listen to radio, or those who can, watch television, we can see Yakub's children trying to further their birth control system. In the old days, when our ancestors were first brought to the Dominican Republic, the slave master wanted strong backs and weak minds. We were naturally strong, so he didn't have to be particular where we came from, such as brother being forced to have sister, etc. The baby would still be strong enough for labor, but it is easy to see how he might be lacking in mental capabilities. Just as Yakub kept tabs on how many black, brown, red, and yellow babies were being born on his island, his children has followed closely in his footsteps by trying to keep tabs on how many of we, the so-called Negroes, holy black people members of Allah God's tribe of Shabazz, are born per hour, day, week, month, year. Yakub wanted the lighter sperm germ. His children are after even worse than that. They want to let just so many blacks be born in order to keep the public off of them, and in the background kill thousands. They want to allow more spotty-up children to be born. This will come through the ignorance of our people who are integration conscious. But put a limit as to how many of them there should be. This also coincides with Yakub, their father, drawing the title of the devil, murderer from the beginning. Other words, to even start this birth control system, to which they have come 400 years ago, but is now trying to sell to the public, they had to murder some holy black children. Among their religious faiths, they are arguing as to whether they should practice their father's teachings on birth control or not. They are angry with each other and Almighty God, Allah, ayahs against them all for their evils done to his vessels. Before Mr. Yakub died, he drew up maps showing his people the way back into the Holy Land. After his scientists had come up with his people, who had went through 12 solutions, and if they would have been taking one more solution, they would have been running sores. We bear witness how weak and sickly they are, as it is. They built rafts and sailed back to the Holy Land. Upon their entrance, they were stoned by the holy black children who had never seen the likes of such people before. So the elders, people of wisdom and knowledge, knew who these Yakub grafted people were, so they put out an edict throughout the Holy Land telling the holy black people not to stone these people, for they are of Yakub's civilization. The wise sultans, or imams, then had a meeting with some of Yakub's people and told them that they were going to be allowed to enter into the Holy Land, or stay there, and that they would be free to go all over providing they did not start any confusion or unrest among the people, and that they could be intimate with all the families or eat of all the fruits in the garden, Holy Land, except the fruit in the midst of the garden, which was the black brothers and sisters. For by having a black brother or sister, Yakub's people broke the divine law of Almighty God Allah. For as we know, one of Yakub's main reasons of grafting them was to take out the dissatisfaction that was among or in us. And seeing that they had only been made 6 months, I could see no need in taking the evil out of us if we were going to allow it to be put right back in through integration. Genesis 1:5 shows the wise sultan telling them upon leaving them into the Holy Land that if they touched the holy black brother and sister, they surely would die. We know ours, the Black Sea, is dominant and will kill all that it comes in contact with. So, brother, within 6 months after these Yakub grafted devils were in the Holy Land, all kinds of confusion started. Brothers started warring against one another and sisters likewise. Yakub's people would go to the holy black brothers and sisters and tell one the other was speaking evil of them. They began stealing, something that was never seen in the Holy Land. One of their major faults was, as it is today, greed and the want of material things. We, being the original people, the best naturally had to be the best of gold, silver, diamonds, etc., whereas these Yakub grafted people had never seen such, and being evil by nature, they could not help but yield to their lust, so they began to steal our gold and silver cups, plates, and many other things that were conventional to us. They would tell one brother that the other brother committed such crimes, thereby starting all kinds of unrest. The word got to the Sultan of the land of this unrest, so he then had an investigation of these Yakub grafted devils and found that it was them causing all the trouble. He then consulted his imams, directors of the different districts, and they decided to drive them out of the Holy Land. So at high noon, 12 o'clock, our holy black brothers mounted camels with our favorite weapon drawn, the scimitar, and as Job 30:5 tells, they drove these people from among the holy people across the Arabian desert at a distance of 2,200 miles to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth or holes, and in the rocks of Europa, Job 30:6. Vegetation. Europe was void of all, so they ate mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their food. Whenever Allah turns his back on a people, that people goes astray. So Allah stripped these devils of all knowledge of civilization. Therefore, they had no sense of discretion or direction. They ate their food raw. They had no knowledge of economics or how to build good shelter. They nearly went all the way into the animal family. They were only dressed in goat skin, which was wrapped around their privates. So they had poor food, poor shelter, and little clothes. They were viler than the earth, meaning the land they were in, Europe. Job 38. As for clothes, we know whether it be man or beast, nature has its way of looking out for them. So seeing that they had so little clothes, plus they had begun going into the animal family, Daniel 4:33 shows their body was wet with dew, meaning they were exposed to the weather, being too dumb at first to even go inside of the caves. The same verse shows that because of this exposure and mixing with the animals, their hairs grew as eagle's feathers and their nails grew as bird claws. After constantly being attacked by the wild beasts, They built small trenches in the sides of the hills and used clubs and rocks to ward off the vicious beast. They weren't successful this way. Too many of their people were being killed. So then, they found the animal only that they could befriend, originally called the wild jackal, known today as the dog.
Continuing on. Now we're going to show you how evil that they have grown to be. So stick and stay, don't go away. We'll be back with the Black Attack. This right here is going to show you that they started the war October the 7th. They lied and said that the Hamas killed the people. But it's a whistleblower. His name is Asa. And he's going to expose some of the truth. Not all of it, but enough to know that the Israelis started the war themselves. They're finding evidence that the Israelis lied.
Asa Winstanley is a journalist with the Electronic Intifada, an author of the best-selling book, Weaponizing Anti-Semitism, How the Israel Lobby Brought Down Jeremy Corbyn. And we're going to speak to Asa primarily about the reporting he's done about what we know and don't know about October 7th, and more evidence that Israeli forces killed their own people on October 7th. And Asa has been doing stellar investigative work on this, which we'll speak to him about, along with other claims that have been made by the Israeli military about October 7th that have turned out to be false.
Asa also lived in the West Bank for 2 years, by the way. And I just want to give a little blurb for his book, because both Aaron and I, full disclosure, blurbed his book. This is what I said about his book, Weaponizing Anti-Semitism. This informative page-turner is full of intrigue, a great source for anyone who wants to understand how anti-Semitism is cynically weaponized by people who don't actually care about combating anti-Semitism. And also make sure that you do subscribe at usefulidiotspodcast.com, because our extended interview with Asa, our paywalled interview, is extremely interesting, and it's about the way he's been smeared by corporate media. He and other journalists who have uncovered the reality about October 7th have been smeared by incredibly, embarrassingly bad corporate media, like the Washington Post and the New York Times.
All right, let's go to Asa Winstanley. Asa Winstanley, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
You have been doing a lot of work on October 7th, and specifically what we know and don't know about Israel firing on its own people. There have been a series of revelations that have come out in Israel that are not very well known inside the United States, especially because the media doesn't really cover it. What to you are some of the most significant revelations that have come out so far?
Israel, I mean, the latest one is simply that the Israeli High Command, the Israeli military's Supreme Command, on October 7th, reactivated a standing order in Israeli military circles known as the Hannibal Directive, which allows Israeli forces to fire on their own people. And this is a long-standing directive, Hannibal Directive, which was established in 1986. But this is the first, October 7th is the first known occasion that it's happened, that it seems to have targeted civilians, Israeli civilians,
rather than soldiers. And I mean, if that sounds crazy, I mean, it kind of is in a way, but the logic of it, such as it is that they want to stop the Palestinian or Lebanese fighters from taking Israelis captive, because those Israelis can then be used as leverage in prisoner swap deals, which end up releasing Palestinians from Palestinians or Lebanese or whoever it is from Israeli prisons. And this is what happened in the case of the Gilad Shalit exchange, if you remember. Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier, was captured by Palestinian fighters in Gaza in 2009. And in the end, I mean, he was held for years in Gaza, treated quite well by all accounts. And in the end, he was released in a prisoner swap, which cost the Israelis 1,000 Palestinian prisoners who were released, including, I believe it was in that release, Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas in Gaza now. And so, you know, I mean, there's been so many revelations that have come out actually in the Israeli press about this. And it's kind of staggering. Like, it takes for the mainstream media to avoid this. I mean, they've been studiously ignoring it. There's so much evidence of the Hannibal Directive taking place, but the latest revelations are about there's a new article in the Israeli newspaper, their weekend supplement of the Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot, which was released the weekend before last by two journalists, Ronan Bergman, who actually is a New York Times journalist as well, and has written several high-profile books, sympathetic books about Israeli intelligence services, including Rise and Kill First, and Yoav Zeytun. And what this piece says, it confirms that the Hannibal Directive was reactivated, and they say it was actually reactivated. They're very specific. They say it was reactivated at midday on the 7th of October, and that 70 cars were destroyed, not by Palestinians, but by Israeli drones, helicopter gunships, or tank fire. So it confirms what we've been saying all along. It confirms what we've been reporting all along, the electronic intifada. You know, it's been studiously ignored by the mainstream media. But there's been, you know, as you know, Aaron, your colleague at the Grey Zone, Max Blumenthal, has also been one of the few of us covering this, along with a couple of other websites, Mondo Weiss and The Cradle. But, you know, outside of us, the mainstream media in the West has been really ignoring this fact. And it actually says we got that, it's a really long piece, and it's actually quite significant historically. And it's very sympathetic to Israel. I mean, it would be, you know, this is not a sort of he's not anti-Israeli journalist or anti-Zionist or whatever. They're not critical journalists in that way, but they do a fair job of reporting, you know. What it actually says is, as I said, it reveals, you know, we saw these images of these cars destroyed and these were cars driven by Palestinian fighters with Israeli captives, for the most part, inside them. And they were being targeted by the Israelis, and they were blown up. And an undetermined number of these casualties were then later included in this death toll, but, you know, maintained by the Israelis, saying that these were Israeli civilians killed by Palestinians. Well, you know, this is confirmation that is not true, that these were so-called friendly fire incidents. And in their article, it says, quote, "It is not clear at this stage how many of the captives were killed due to the operation of this order," that is the Hannibal Directive. And quote, "At least in some of these cases, everyone in the vehicle was killed." It's a really significant new piece, which has confirmed a lot of what we've been reporting about this.
And it's interesting because, as you said, this piece is not, you know, it's sympathetic to Israel, obviously. It was published in, as you pointed out, Yediot Ahronot. It supplements 7 days.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quote from the opening of it, which you guys on Electronic Intifada had translated. On the morning of October 7th, some of the most impressive tales of heroism and self-sacrifice in the history of the country were written, but so too was a long series of failures, mishaps, and chaos in the army. So again, it seems in this way, it's like, kind of fair and balanced. It's not coming from an anti-Israel publication, and they're praising some of the responses, but also indicting many of the responses. And I also thought it was interesting, you pointed out that they do translate, this newspaper will translate their articles into English, but this one wasn't translated into English.
Yeah, and there may not be anything in that. It may just be because it's a long article.
Yeah.
It could just be that, but I don't know. I rather suspect that it may be, at least one of the reasons why it wasn't published was just because of the nature of it, that it reflects quite badly on the Israeli military.
Yeah, but even without my nefarious conspiracy theory, it's just, it's significant that it has not been, because that, of course, means that it hasn't been picked up as much by the media, but also, as you are implying or stating, if the media were interested in finding out what happened, I mean, Electronic Intifada had someone who's a native Hebrew speaker translate it. Other places have.
We've seen sort of. It was interesting, like when this article came out, it was previewed the day before the weekend, which is the day, which is a Thursday. The weekend starts on Friday in Israel. People were sharing screenshots of the kind of preview article of it online straight away, based on like a machine translation.
Right.
But we got, those are not always accurate. So we got we got Dina Shunra, who's kind of is our long-term Hebrew translator. She's a professional Hebrew translator, and she was brought up in Israel, although she doesn't live there anymore. But she actually spent the whole weekend translating it, because it's a very long article, and it's incredibly significant, and people can read. We actually published the full translation just for reference at the end of the article, so people can read it in full and make up their own minds.
And Hannibal is a figure who, it's called the Hannibal Directive because Hannibal is someone who, under the Roman Empire, rather than, I guess, submitting, committed suicide.
Hannibal was a general of Carthage. So Carthage was in ancient history was the great enemy, or sort of the nemesis of the Roman Empire, and he of the elephants, Hannibal, who reputedly rode the elephants across the Alps. But the point is that in history he is said to have, as you said, poisoned himself rather than be captured alive by the Romans. So it cannot be a coincidence that it was named this. And there is this kind of strand, and again, this is something Max Blumenthal has written about. There's this strand in Israeli society, this kind of, I don't know, some people have called it a death cult, or this kind of suicidal, that's maybe not quite the right word for it, but a kind of suicidal impulse in a way.
In case you don't know, Hannibal was black.
Because the graduation, for another example, is Masada. I mean, the myth of Masada, which I'm sure you're both familiar with, but the Israeli soldiers at their graduation are taken to Masada, which is reputed to be, in mythology, is reputed to be this last stand of Jewish zealots to the Roman Empire. And so the idea is that, and they say when they graduate there is Masada will never fall again. So, the implication being that we'd rather commit suicide than be taken alive, kind of thing.
Which is what happened at Masada, right? According to the myth.
According to, yeah. So the Hannibal director, I mean, it seems that, it looks, I mean, according to this article, it seems like it happened. It was soldiers on the ground, or pilots who decided to do this. They decided to just, because they'd been trained in this doctrine, the Hannibal Directive. It happened in a kind of on the ground sort of grassroots way. And then soon after that, at midday, there was this specific order from what's called the Pit, which is the Israeli military's high command in an underground bunker below Tel Aviv, that all units of the Israeli military were permitted to operate the Hannibal Directive, because at midday was the moment, according to this Bergman Zitun article, midday was the time when the first videos of the Israeli captives started being released. And this is another incredible aspect of this article, because it shows how the Palestinian military assault on military targets on October the 7th, it shows how incredibly successful it was, because this high command, the Pit, so-called, they didn't really know what was going on, and it was only by looking online really that they could see what was happening. So they, according to this article, they were relying on Telegram channels in large part, partly Israeli Telegram channels, but also Hamas Telegram channels, and that's how they saw these the videos of these Israeli captives. So they probably saw them emerge around about the same time as us. And the reason for this intelligence failure was that the Palestinian fighters had targeted the communications infrastructure, and they deliberately targeted the communications masts and aerials and so forth around the military bases when they broke out of Gaza. And so the high command was in the dark.
One more thing about, Hannibal, is that and Masada, I do think it's interesting that according to the Masada legend, which has been challenged by archaeologists, but according to the legend or the mythology around it, it's not just that they committed suicide rather than submit to the Romans, but that the men gathered together, decided that they would kill themselves, but also each man killed his own wife and children.
Huh.
Which is,
we're supposed to celebrate all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to admit, I've had the misfortune of being taken on the Masada tour as a young North American Jewish person. And, it was really corny. And it's supposed to be a very emotional thing. Like you hike up early in the morning and they take you there and you're supposed to feel this connection to this place. Like the sacrifice was done for us, and it's really corny and obviously a fantasy as well. Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that part I'd forgotten that, actually. So it's interesting you bring that up, Katie, that they killed allegedly. How true these things are is questionable, but that they also killed their wives and children. And you see some of that rhetoric. You saw some of that rhetoric come out around the 7th of October. I mean, if you remember, do you remember this? This guy, Thomas Hand, I don't know if you saw the video of that. His daughter, Emily Hand, was captured by Palestinian fighters on October 7th. And there was this famous or infamous interview with her father, Thomas Hand, who's a settler from Ireland by the look of it. In this sort of tear-jerking interview with Clarissa Ward of CNN, he said when he heard his daughter was dead, wrongly as it turned out, thankfully, he heard from the Israeli military that his daughter was dead. He said yes and cheered, because if you know about what happens to you in Gaza, it's worse than death. And he was very tearful and very, he sincerely seemed to believe this, right? And thankfully it turned out that she was alive, and she was later released released by the Palestinian fighters during the brief pause in fighting that took place in November. But that's kind of an example of this kind of ideology kind of seeping through. And I saw another example of that, which I wrote about in another article, where there was I think it was in Kibbutz Be'eri, but there was another man who said that he had in an account. His name was Oyelin, and he was the son of a local politician in, I believe, in Kibbutz Be'eri. It may have been one of those communities near Gaza, one of these Israeli settlements near the Gaza Strip. And he said that he and his wife had discussed during the assault that if by the Palestinians, that if Hamas had come to them, he and his wife both agreed that he would take a kitchen knife and stab his wife. And this is what he was saying to Israeli media. So there is this kind of, I don't know, suicidal cult really embedded in Zionism and in the Israeli state. And so, yeah, it's... and the thing as well that's really, it should be emphasized about the Hannibal Directive is that it's not over. Like, it wasn't just something that was just happening on the 7th of October. They're still kind of doing it in Gaza, right? Because they're bombing everything, even when they know that there are Israeli captives there. Leave aside all the Palestinian, 25,000 Palestinian civilians they've massacred. They know Israelis captives are there, and they're still shooting, bombing, and killing them. And it seems like it's starting to seem like, the political leaders of Israel do not want those captives to come home alive.
Well, it's so ironic.
Well, we're going to end this one here. We got another one we want to show you. We're going to try to get it in. So this was talking about Trump. And those of you black people that want to vote for Trump, we got another whistleblower, that's a good friend of Trump's, that's squealing on Trump. A good friend of Trump that's squealing on Trump. So we're gonna go to him, because this one's kind of long, and I'm gonna try to get through all of it, because our people don't know which way they want to go. Some of them want to vote for Biden, and you see what Biden is doing. Some of y'all want to say we're gonna go to Trump now. Well, this dude is telling us that Trump is a gangster. Yeah, he's with the mafia. I always thought that too, All of them is with the mafia. Let's check it out. Stick and stay don't go away. And I hope this helped you to decide not to vote, period.
Scott Binsack. Thank you for joining me. Little Godfather. Excellent movie. Tonight, I'm going to give you a special show about Donald Trump and the Dons. La Costa Nostra, i.e., the family, the mafia. I'm going to start off with a clip that I want you all to see. And I want to make this clear. I'm a Donald Trump supporter. However, in my investigations and in my reporting, I'm going to bring you the truth. And people say, Scott, who are you to report on the mafia? I'm going to show you who I am and how I can report on the mafia and who my ties are and how I know a lot about Donald Trump and his many ties to the mafia, including that of but that surfacing of the Russian mafia. I will also tell you that I believe that I've come to find out of what's really going on here and how two factions, two we'll say deep state factions have collided, and how Hillary Clinton took advantage of a situation that was previously going on and used prior information of Donald Trump against him, as well as Obama has, and they stepped into one investigation that led into another investigation, and they've taken advantage of that situation. And if my lips are out of sync, I apologize. It's the upload speed from where I am. Just please listen. I want to bring you this very important clip.
Donald Trump says he's worth $11 billion. I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second. But go and look at what he's built, and some questions arise. Trump Plaza.
I know the best people, and I'm totally self-funding my campaign. So I don't have to take donors and special interest people and lobbyists. I don't have to bring them in.
On how he got so rich, Trump has in the past boasted of his business integrity. I'm 100% clean, he said. The same cannot be said of some of the people he did business with.
Trump Plaza, Atlantic City, New Jersey, the site of Donald Trump's foray into the casino business. It ended up in a heap of broken dreams.
Trump Plaza closed 2 years ago. 4 of his gambling businesses went bust. Back in 1980, when Trump launched his first casino here, some of his business partners worked for the mafia. The picture in New York was no better.
Here lies Fat Tony Salerno, once one of the most feared men in New York. He was the boss of the Genovese crime family, and it just so happens the man from whom Donald Trump bought his concrete.
Fat Tony and other mobsters had a lock on New York concrete. While most builders use steel and some concrete, Trump built the tallest concrete building in New York.
Fat Tony Salerno was fat, and he was the head of the Genovese crime family, which was the most powerful crime family in the city at the time.
And Fat Tony didn't just supply concrete to Donald Trump. The two men also shared a lawyer, Roy Cohn.
Well, the evidence is that Fat Tony Salerno met with Donald Trump in Roy Cohn's office, which makes incredibly logical sense. Not only did I have sources telling me that at the time, but when you consider that he's building the largest concrete structure of its time, and the concrete industry is controlled by Fat Tony Salerno, it makes all the sense in the world.
In the early 90s, Trump was almost $1 billion in the red. By 2004, he'd recovered and got into reality TV. But here's someone he didn't fire, his business associate, Felix Sater.
In 1991 in this bar, Felix Sater had a row with another Wall Street broker. Sater snapped the stem of a margarita glass and stabbed the man in the neck and face. The man had 110 stitches. And Sater, he went to prison. Out of jail, he took part in a $40 million stock market fraud, boosting shares and then selling them at a profit. A pump and dump scam. Then Sater made a deal with the FBI, informing on his fellow fraudsters in the Cosa Nostra. Sater's conviction was publicized, but later, in return for him cooperating with the feds, it was sealed. Sater and Trump got into business together in the early 2000s, when Sater was an executive at Bayrock. This is one of 3 developments that Donald did with Bayrock. From Trump Soho, the name, you would have thought that Trump was the money behind this project. He wasn't. He was only the face.
As well as Trump Soho, there were 2 other projects with Bayrock: Trump Fort Lauderdale in Florida and Trump Camelback in Arizona. When property prices began to slide, the Trump Bayrock projects in Florida and Arizona crashed. Newsnight understands investors lost at least $10 million on the Trump Fort Lauderdale deal alone.
I checked out the location in Fort Lauderdale. It was an absolute great location. And I thought with the Trump organization behind it and Mr. Trump, putting his name on the line, I thought it would be very successful.
Everything fine?
Everything's good. In 2013, I challenged Trump about his relationship with Felix Sater.
Well, then why didn't you go to Felix Sater and say, you're connected with the mafia, you're fired?
Well, first of all, we were not the developer there. That was a licensing deal.
But your name was on it.
A very simple licensing deal.
But your name's on it, Mr. Trump.
Excuse me, but I don't know. You're telling me things that I don't even know about. I mean, you're telling me about Felix Sater. I know who he is. I know of him, and I know who he is.
You stayed in bed, if I may say so, with Felix Sater, and he was connected with the mafia.
Again, John, maybe you're thick, but when you have a signed contract, you can't, in this country, just break it. Sometimes we'll sign a deal, and the partner isn't as good as we'd like, but that does happen. And by the way, John, I hate to do this, but I do have that big group of people waiting, so I have to.
Okay, now one last question, please, sir.
I have to leave. Thank you.
Okay, all right then.
Everybody just pay attention to this, and I'm going to tell you why this is relevant now.
Which has only recently been unsealed by the courts. And what Trump told me wasn't true. Look at this. It's what's known as a bad boy clause. It states that Bayrock shall do nothing to bring, distribute to, or in any manner impair or damage the Trump brand. Sater's convictions were reported by the New York Times in December 2007. The critical question is, before that date, did Trump know about Sater's racketeering past? Here's some evidence Trump could have found when they went into business together.
The guilty plea was publicly announced all over the world in a press release put out by the United States Attorney's Office in New York. And
Liz, what is it you're saying? Come on about.
Field office.
Just listen.
The press release went all over the world. It was published even in The Guardian. I think it was published in Australia. I'm not sure. It was published in the New York Daily News.
There was also issued that same day an indictment against his co-conspirators, and that indictment identified Felix Sater by name as one of the co-conspirators. And that was public record.
A third pointer in 2006 that might have alerted Trump to Sater's past was a lawsuit alleging that he made a death threat against a Trump Bayrock investor. Ernie Menez had bought into Trump Camelback in Arizona. He found out about Sater's past, and then he said he got a phone call. The case was later settled, but in the lawsuit, Menez said that Sater threatened to have a man electrically shock Mr. Menez's testicles, cut off Mr. Menez's legs, and leave Mr. Menez dead in the trunk of his car. Sater's lawyer says this claim was an outright fabrication. Fred Oberlander has acted for clients suing Bayrock.
You'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind, in my opinion. The ability of somebody like Donald Trump to know with whom he was doing business and to whom he was selling the right to use his name would certainly include finding the press release in the congressional record where it got put in November 2000.
Trump has said he didn't know about Sater's past until December 2007. We do as much of a background check as we can on the principals. I didn't really know him very well.
This is tape number 1 of the videotape deposition of Mr. Donald J. Trump. In the
6 months after my interview, he had this to say about Sater.
About how many times have you conversed with Mr. Sater?
Over the years?
Over the years, if you could ask.
Not many.
Not many.
If he were sitting in the room right now, I really wouldn't know what he looked like.
Okay.
Astonishingly, that was 3 years after Sater had an office in Trump Tower, a Trump email, and a business card listing him as a senior advisor to Trump.
Mr. Felix Sater.
Felix Sater now sees himself as a reformed character.
My life has been beyond interesting. My wife says living with me is like reading next week's newspaper today.
Oberlander and learners say that Sater didn't reveal his convictions to the banks, and so the argument goes. The Trump-Bayrock deals are built on bank fraud.
His name is still on Trump Soho, which is a Bayrock project, and he's still drawing profits off of that edifice built on fraud. He has in my opinion, an ethical obligation at a minimum to disassociate himself from Trump Soho, because that project was built on bank fraud.
Sater's lawyer told Newsnight that his client will not comment on either Trump or Bayrock, adding that Sater is not now, nor has he ever been, not connected. So what about Trump's boast that he's 100% clean? Can anyone who did business with the likes of Fat Tony Salerno and Felix Sater claim that? Donald Trump cannot wipe clean his brushes with the mob.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of my history. Okay? Give me 1 second. And the reason for this is, I'm going to lay it out to you all very cleanly. Okay? And I'm going to say this. I support Donald Trump. But I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say to you and then what I'm going to show you and how all this will connect to the Russian mob and who Felix Sater is. Felix Sater is a rat. Felix Sater is who James Comey has been protecting and an upper boss above him. And I'm going to explain to you how I know all this, okay? And I'm going to lay it out. And this is not to sell you any books. My book doesn't come out till July anyway, and there's a videography coming with this, with everything connected to it in documents and everything, and major bombshell. And nothing I'm going to expose would expose or hurt anybody in the mafia at all, because I'm not a rat, and I suffered for that, okay? I'm not a turncoat. I'm not a guy who will give up information, period. And the FBI wanted me to. I've been in protective custody. That's how I met my daughter's mom, Christine. That's how I ended up with my beautiful daughter, Brittany, at all. I grew up in the banana crime family. I left home at 15, okay? I grew up with some of the toughest gangsters that there are in the banana crime family at all. Gambinos, know them all, John Gotti, all of them. Regardless of what haters or other people may say to you, they can pack their shit, okay? And I'm going to explain and show you this. This is my book that's coming out, and I'm going to give people the shocking true story of my life. This is me on the cover of the Business Journal at 23. I quit school in 8th grade, opened my own company at 17, and yes, I will admit I lied on the on the application to get my first contracting license in Nassau County. I will admit I was 17, wanted to get my contractor's license, passed the test, got my license at 18. By 23, as you can see on here, I was a self-made millionaire doing anywhere from $16 to $18 million a year, not by the mafia's help. One of my first contracts was done with a man named Peter Armato. Peter Armato, aka Stumpy, he's deceased now, Major Bonanno Capo. Also have ties to Atlantic City. Family runs Hunts Point Market in New York City. This is now the acting crime boss, Tommy DeFiore, aka Tommy D. I know this man very well. This man is ruthless. This man is who the FBI has wanted for many, many years, and they could not find anybody to really turn on him. He has just gotten out of federal prison. In prison in New York. These are gentlemen tied to, as I will show you, tied to Goodfellas. Do you know the movie, The Goodfellas? Okay. The original Lufthansa heist. This is me. After, see me being let out, this is what the haters like to put out in pictures of me. In 1999, I was in a near-fatal auto accident in Pennsylvania. Never been in trouble with the law in my life. Yes, I was with the mafia, but I made my own money, and that's what the mafia liked about me. I was very successful. They wanted to learn how I was successful, and they also wanted me to use and always stick with their construction companies like Donald Trump did with the mafia, concrete, sheetrock, everything. I owned the Hamptons at 23. It's one of the hardest markets to break into. Fact. Numerous magazines, numerous covers. In 1998, they came after me, and it started as a string of events, nonviolent, in the state of Pennsylvania. I then had a near-fatal auto accident, woke up, had the FBI, 2 special agents next to my bed, Special Agent Douglas Leff, Special Agent William Powell. They told me possibly my accident was not an accident, and that this gentleman here tried to put a hit on me. That was a false story and came out to be found as not true. I was put in protective custody. They wanted me to testify against this very dangerous individual who was also a very close friend of mine. Okay, the man never did anything to me, protected me, as well as taught me lots of things. Okay, and I don't mean criminal things. I'm talking about respect. I'm talking about how to deal with assholes. I'm talking about how to deal with life, because I was a very successful young businessman. My connections with Tommy D and others, and I'm not going to name names, is what allows me to get into the world I'm going to bring to you tonight in the second part of this story, having to do with why Donald Trump is connected to the mafia. Donald Trump's attorney, which I'm going to show you, is Ray Cohen. Ray Cohen is a mob lawyer, heavy mob lawyer, not just for the Gambinos or other top mafia dons. Okay? After they tried to frame me, set me up after filing a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that's all it was over. Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I was in protective custody. While I was in protective custody with the FBI, they could not tell the state officials in Pennsylvania, DA, ex-DA, now convicted ex-DA, Mark Pazahanich. Mark Pazahanich would not listen to the 5th District U.S. Attorney's Office, organized crime out of Manhattan. Mark told the ADA told him this was a civil matter to leave me alone, that I was dealing with the FBI. Mark Pazahanich refused to listen, said it was a Commonwealth state, screw you. Well, Mark Pazahanich got his karma. He got, subsequently after my case, he got convicted of getting caught of molesting his own daughter. I will show you that. Point being, I then left the FBI's custody after meeting my daughter's mom. Christine was the only one who knew my real name. I was in Red Bank, New Jersey. I was at a long-term stay hotel. She worked with the FBI. My mail would go to P.O. Box 1111 in Manhattan. It would then get delivered by a special agent to Christine. Christine would then give it to me. She worked with the FBI agents on several other cases, putting up people long-term under a different name. I had a code name. I had to sign for money. I was given a rental car. Everything that I needed to help to get this man right here. I refused. I found out that and I will say this, the FBI did take care of me. The FBI did try to help stop this BS in Pennsylvania. They refused. Okay, Mark Pazahanich refused deliberately because there's a personal vendetta, and he used me to win an election, and the corruption in Pennsylvania is huge. And even the attorney, and people say, how come they couldn't listen to the feds? Pennsylvania is a Commonwealth state. They do not have to follow federal law. And the guy was a total asshole and out for me and used me to win an election. Fact. Then he tried to chase me all over the world, believing that I was on the run, you see, at first when I was really in protective custody with the FBI. Get it? Good. Next. I went on the run. I really went on the run thereafter because the FBI said, enough, my mother died. I wanted to go bury my mother. I then met with Tommy at the Far Rockaway Diner. I recorded all this. I recorded the conversations using the recording equipment that the feds gave me to record Tommy if he ever called me. I recorded them. I recorded Tommy. I recorded everything, and I have it. I have kept it. It is locked. It is coming out in my book and my videography. So, let me throw my phone out the window for a second. And it's another one of them cheap lying haters that is very shortly going to go to prison, trust me, or jail, not prison because it's misdemeanor stuff. One of them is a felony. Point being, I then went on the run. I cut a deal with Tommy, never testified, never did anything. I got what's called a free pass, okay? And what that means is everything was good. I actually found out who the real rat was. I'm not going to go into anything. I'm going to leave it at that. Gave them the information. I then went on the run for a few years around the world, you know, to those places that people say I don't have. My home in Costa Rica, Antigua, Grand Cayman, the island of Nevis, et al. I have proof of this. It'll come out in my book, from not just passport stamps, but to receipts, to everything, to deeds, leases, everything. Subsequently, I came back to the United States. I was eventually apprehended, basically at my own doing. I wanted to get this over with. I went to Pennsylvania to face this ridiculous charges, and my life became a living hell. I stood up to it. I know what it's like to rot in prison cells. I sued the prison. I stood up to the corruption. I went on for years. I never went to trial. They convinced me to plea to some ridiculous charges that I was supposed to get time served as a first-time offender. I did not want to plea. It's on the record. That way you'll be given the transcripts in my book to prove. The judge admitted in the transcripts this is how I won on appeal, and then strangely documents got lost, etc. Then I was freed. I opened up another multi-million-dollar company, which I still own today, Mansions and Estates International. They tried to get me in Scranton. This was all tied to the same thing because I kept proving what the corruption was, and I stood up to the corruption. So I feel for the Bundys right now. I know what it's like to be thrown in the hole. I know what it's like to be shut up. I know what it's like to not to get a fair hearing. I know what it's like to do this, and it went on for years. They've also tried, you know, this DA tried to come and get me to force me to get my offshore account money, which was legally put there many years ago, all for a legal tax shelter, had nothing to do with anything, etc. You can see here there's an update to the Bonanno crime family boss heads to trial, link to Goodfellas Latunda heist. You can come to this site, click on this, and as I said, this is not to sell you a book. I will give you a book. I want people to read this story. I want people to watch my videography. So when people say to me, Scott, where are you getting your information about Donald Trump and his ties to the mafia or the Russian mafia at all, I can assure you I have those ties and I have those connections, and they're very serious. And you know what? These people trust me because you know what? I'm not a rat. I will tell you what I want to tell you, and I will tell you what the truth is. So we have our haters calling me on a restricted number at the moment. And like I said, we're going to trash the phone in a second. Anyway, just like I can assure you, these people that have been harassing, lying, trying to defame me and do whatever and harass my family, I can assure you, they're finished. Okay? You can come here. You can read this all about what's going on here. Give me a second. I'm going to shut up my phone. You can go here, related reading, Tommy D. Fiore. You can go here. You'll see how serious of a crime boss he is. Okay? You can find out about the DA, Mark Pazahanich, who is now a convicted child molester, sick fuck of his own daughter. Okay? Convicted, pled guilty on Megan's list. One of the judges I beat in my second case is now 28 years accepting bribes in exchange for youth. This is Kids for Cash. He's doing 28 years in federal prison. You can come here and see my other websites and see the truth about me and not this ridiculous shit from some fake news and some small newspaper articles and some haters from Pennsylvania who mostly are all fucking corrupt. Now, that you understand who I am and where I'm getting my information, I will go into what I want to discuss with you about Donald Trump. You can go to this site. It's scottbinsackstayingreal.com. You can get links to my other sites here as well. Next. Okay. Now, you know, it's funny. It's funny how people turn around and go, you know, Scott, you're reading when you're online and you're reading and giving people information and da-da-da-da-da. If I'm going to bring you something, I want to bring you the truth. And I'm going to put in what I know and what I do not know. So, now, let me explain to you what's happening. Donald Trump was connected to the mafia. Donald Trump does know Felix Slater. Donald Trump's lawyer is Ray Cohen. Okay? This is all true. You can Google this. You can find this. As you watched in the clip, Donald Trump became in serious trouble financially. Donald Trump reached to Russian connections to get funded. Fact. Okay? This is not saying anything I'm telling you tonight does not make him a bad president, does not make him any of the above, but I'm telling you this, and what I'm going to show you tonight and reveal to you again for people who...
Joe Biden sold out to the Chinese. Trump sold out to the Russians. And Joe Biden knew this. Donald Trump knew that Joe Biden sold out to the Chinese. So they're trying to get each other arrested or impeached or whatever.
Seem to be hard-headed and do not want to understand how deep this is from both sides. There's two wars going on here. Actually, there's more than just two wars. Once they found out about Donald Trump's ties with Russia and the mafia, Hillary Clinton et al. Team decided, whoa, what a perfect way to use this against Donald Trump. Now, the problem is that there really are Russian ties with Donald Trump's team. And even better, I'm going to show you tonight. Do we know the president of Turkey, Erdogan? You know Erdogan? Donald Trump and team and these mafia associates have very serious ties to Erdogan. Now, this is Turkey, okay? And if we remember the story I told you about Michael Flynn getting paid from Turkey, we already know this is proved. The news has brought this out. Erdogan wanted Michael Flynn, General Flynn, to take Fatih Gulen and smuggle him out of the United States and get him to Turkey for Erdogan and Putin. Fact. Woolsey, ex-CIA head Woolsey, is the one who walked in and was part of dumb. I said at the time in Donald Trump's campaign, why would he bring on ex-Clinton CIA head Woolsey to be on his team? I even brought it up on a video then. I said, bad move. It's going to come back to bite everybody in the ass. Sure enough, the Wall Street Journal story I brought you that was exclusive from Woolsey about Michael Flynn turned instead that he walked in and was invited to a meeting with Michael Flynn in a downtown New York hotel with Turkish representatives, that they were cutting a deal on how to get Fatih Gulen out of, who's being protected in Pennsylvania, out of the United States without following U.S. extradition proceedings. This is another major thing that's going to come up against Michael Flynn. Woolsey will be a key witness to this, even at a grand jury, okay? If you know, recently, Donald Trump got knocked for contacting Erdogan in Turkey because Erdogan is really basically a terrorist. Pay attention. Erdogan feeds ISIS along with Saudi Arabia at all. That's a whole another point. But my point to you is, and I'm going to get into how serious the connections are and what they're going to say and what they're about to do to Donald Trump. And Trump knows this. Trump knows, and he did lie in the interviews that he just did, and that's why he ended the interview with the BBC when the gentleman called him out, because he knows Felix Slater. There's pictures of him all over the place for years. I'm going to show you something. Felix Slater, business card, Donald Trump, Trump Tower, everywhere. See this right here on the right-hand side? Felix Slater, very close to Donald Trump. The top picture is just one of many of Donald Trump and Ray Cohen. Ray Cohen is a 1,000% mafia attorney, head mafia attorney. This guy's dangerous. This guy knows everybody to know everybody, from bribing judges to doing whatever. Pay attention. Okay, this is deep stuff. And a lot of this was raised during the campaign with Donald Trump on several news outlets, and was even raised by Lying Ted Cruz. Lying Ted Cruz was bringing this all up as well. Ted Cruz is one of the only people who called out Donald Trump on his ties to the mafia. Okay? So, now, I have been trying to tell everybody, before I show you what I'm going to show you, that at this current moment, there is ongoing, forget about just the Russian collusion investigation. There is ongoing RICO. RICO is what is used in organized crime and even in the drug world to bring down for extortion, bribery, money laundering at all. New York State Attorney General, who hates Donald Trump, who went after Trump University, and when Donald Trump settled for $25 million, is the man who is going after in New York State Donald Trump and family and ties, mafia ties, for RICO, for money laundering, etc. As the BBC report was saying, including that of Jared Kushner. The Jewish mafia is heavily involved in this as well, and that's how there's many ties that go to Putin. I will tell you that in part 2 of my findings and my show. Okay?
That's why you got Epstein.
People are saying if you grew up in New York City, you have some ties to mafia or not. No, pay attention. I'm in the mafia. I grew up in the Bonanno crime family. A lot of people like to say they know people. A lot of people like, as I showed you from my book. There's a difference of knowing somebody in the mafia. There's a difference of being in the mafia. And it's called, they're around me. They're with me. Those words, they are with me. When people say you can reach to somebody, pay attention. And the Russian mafia is much worse than the Italian mafia will ever be. And they're very dangerous. Very dangerous. And this is what Comey's protecting, because Slater has gotten them to a much higher man in the Russian mafia. And I'm going to bring you that. Okay? I'm going to bring you that. What am I trying to say? Pay attention. Donald Trump is tied heavily to organized crime and has been. I still support Donald Trump. And I'm trying to tell you, and I'm going to show you in 1 minute how deeply Donald Trump is connected to the Russian mafia. Are people brain dead? Do people not want to believe the truth? Do people want to believe that this is some joke? Do people want to believe that let's put it to you this way, the Italian mafia, the Irish mafia, excuse me, via the Italian mafia, and Joe Kennedy got JFK elected. Pay attention. Let them not understand, because when the future of what is going to come out, you can come back and look at this video then and my other videos and say, oh shit, Scott knows what he was talking about and he was correct. Every time I bring something out, people come out and go, that's not true. What are you trying to say? What's this? What's that? And then it comes true. And then there's what? Nothing. Nothing. A lot of people want to keep head in sand. A lot of people don't want to believe the truth, etc. Alexander, they can call everything what they'd like. Gotta love haters. Now, small minds. Small minds discuss people and bullshit. Got it? Good. So, now, let's get into the Russian mafia. Consulting and security firms with state clients are now putting out an alarm. America has entered a constitutional crisis. The government is wrong somehow. Terms like deep state and rigged election are floating out there. In truth, few grasp what has really happened, and few still don't know how to tell the story. Fact. What is here needs to be understood in order to be survived. To begin with, we are only continuing the tale begun in Damascus in 2014 when we informed a regional security conference that ISIS is a creation of what? Organized crime, and has only a veneer of Wahhabist extremists, just enough to feed the willing press assets who have been tasked to continue the subterfuge. Most get all of this now.
Remember that word proxy? That word proxy I was telling you about? Pimping and hoeing. And in the Bible, it calls the great hoe Babylon. And it tells the righteous and the black people to come out of her, but y'all getting sucked deeper and deeper in to the hole because Farrakhan and that cat right there that's talking, they double agents, man. He could talk like he talking because he protected by, the CIA and everybody else. See, we don't understand the game of the white man. That's why we ain't got no business in America playing politics. Because this game right here is a game that he created, a game of Monopoly. Now, we know how to play chess pretty good, but this world right here ain't about chess. It's about Monopoly.
How ISIS is a fake terrorism reported by fake news to fake countries with fake governments and fake economies based on fake money. Fake fact. How's that? Our context begins with the news of the day, minor players, press conferences, and phony congressional investigations, just like you saw today. That is all smoke and mirrors, all there for the public to believe that something is going to truly come out of it, when really what's going to come out of it is what they want to come out of it. Past this, there is an equally phony FBI investigation, and for the first time, most readers will get more than empty accusations and bumper sticker analysis. We are actually going to tell you where it all comes from, who did it, and why you should care, so sit tight. It's going to be a bumpy ride, and that's my point. People don't want to believe the truth, and everything that I'm going to show you here is 1,000% accurate. Don't want to believe it? Oh, well. It's clear to most Americans that Devin Nunes is involved in what they want to call it monkey business of some kind, secret midnight meetings, and blatant misuse of his position to scuttle inquiries to President Trump and those around him. Official criminal investigations Nunes learned of while questioning FBI Director Comey recently. These questions and many more will be answers none want to hear. Not Comey, not Nunes, and certainly not Donald Trump. The truth, the real truth, presents a dark picture of something more than a simple constitutional crisis or Washington corruption as usual. And this is the point I'm trying to make to everybody. This is much bigger than that of just the swamp in Washington at all. I'm going to put this, let me zoom in on this for everybody here so I can go through this properly and you can see this. Okay, now, the truth, the real truth is there are in the United States no organizations capable of protecting themselves against those who you will learn about here. In other words, these are very serious players, very serious people, and this is the truth. We will paint a very dark picture, one of a world few would have accepted as possible and only a few short months ago. Today, things are different. Lies, threats, and bullying are the law of the land. Look around. So is murder and corruption, not the fake news conspiracy theory version. The dead here are real dead, the threat real as well. Key sources have told us how mob bought and paid for Justice Department And FBI officials have scuttled investigations into not just Trump, but Epstein and Sater, but their bosses. Men so powerful no one can protect them from, least of all, a president. This man right here, Semyon Mogilevich, is the man that the FBI wants the most. This is Putin's KGB, Russian mafia head man. You're talking about not just, this man is responsible for running even nuclear weapons. This man is responsible for, is a very dangerous man, untouchable. Untouchable. I can go through, I'm not going to go through his whole history here, but Mogilevich was born in 1946 in Kiev-Podol neighborhood. In 1968 at 22, Mogilevich earned a degree in economics, yada, yada, yada. He was started out as a petty theft criminal and fraud. He served 2 terms of 3 to 4 years for currency dealing offenses. Alleged Russian organized crime boss, believed by European and United States federal law enforcement agencies to be the boss of bosses of most Russian mafia syndicates in the world. Mogilevich is believed to direct a vast criminal empire described by the FBI as the most dangerous mobster in the world. He has been accused by the FBI of weapons trafficking, contract murders, extortion, drug trafficking, prostitution on an international scale. And I can confirm this man is dangerous. And he's connected to who? Felix Slater. Mogilevich is believed to have Mogilevich's nickname include Don Simeon and the Brainy Don because of his business acumen. According to U.S. diplomatic cables, he is said to control Ross Energo. It's a company actively involved in Russia, Ukraine. Figure the name Ukraine. Okay? Ukraine. Pay attention. Ukraine gas disputes and a partner of Raiffeisen Bank. In 1994, the Mogilevich Group obtained control over Incom Bank, one of the largest private banks in Russia, in a secret deal with bank chairman Vladimir Vinogradov. Getting direct access to the world financial system, the bank collapsed in 1998 under suspicions of money laundering. Through Incom Bank in 1996, he obtained a significant share in Sukhoi, a large military aircraft manufacturer. He lives freely in Moscow and has 3 children. He's mostly closely associated in Solonskaya Bratva crime group, political, which is huge. Political figures he has close alliances with include Yuri Luzakov, the former mayor of Moscow, Dmitry Firtash, and Leonid Derkach, former head of the Secret Service of Ukraine. Paul Manafort is being accused of doing what in Ukraine? Embezzling billions of dollars out of Ukraine. So pay attention. Turchnov, who was designated as acting president of Ukraine in February 2014. Pay attention. It appeared in court in 2010 for allegedly destroying files pertaining to Mogilevich. Shortly before his death, Alexander Litvinenko claimed that Mogilevich had allegedly had a good relationship with Vladimir Putin since the 1990s. Yes, he has. Okay, there's an appendix to this. I'm going to put this all up in a note when I'm done with my video uploaded to YouTube, on a note in Facebook for everybody to see. McCall Friedman, another huge Russian entrepreneur, business executive, and philanthropist. With Russian and Israeli citizenship, he co-founded here. Very important name here. Alpha Group, a large multinational conglomerate. In 1990, he co-founded what? Alpha Bank. Do you know where Alpha Bank was? Trump Towers. Do you know where Alpha Bank is tied to? Even Jeff Sessions. Pay attention. Which is now the largest private bank in Russia. Friedman currently sits as chairman of the supervisory board of Alpha Group Consortium, and he's also on the board of Alpha Bank and ABH Holdings. Both of these have been tied, not by fake CIA, not by FBI bullshit, but actual factual documents et al. And ties, and people are ratting as we speak. Even Rudy Giuliani was going to go down with all this, but he's going to turn evidence, fact. ABA Holdings, which is the Luxembourg-based holding company of Alpha Banking Group. Friedman has been a member of numerous public, facing bodies, blah, Russian Union, Based for years out of Moscow and often spending time at corporate headquarters in cities such as Amsterdam, Hamburg. Friedman is unmarried, has 4 children, based in Paris with his ex-wife as of 2003. Now, this man, Tevfik Arif. This man is in the picture with who? Donald Trump. This man right here. Donald Trump one side, him and Felix Slater. It sits on Donald Trump's desk in Trump Tower, just so you all know. Tevfik was born in Zakha Soviet Socialist Republic in May 1953. He received an international relations degree in Moscow prior to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Following the independence of Kazakhstan, Arif and his brothers secured ownership of ACCP, a chromium plant in Oktob that the headquarters in the British Virgin Islands. The brothers developed ties to Kazakh trio Alexander, Moshevich, Petro Chodovayev, and Aljan Ilbragimov. They later established offshore real estate companies to fund high-end developments. Now pay attention. In Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. Arif moved to Turkey in 1993. In 1999, Arif partnered with the Rixos hotel chain to open Labada Luxury Hotel in Antalya, Turkey in 2001. Arif moved some of his businesses to the United States and founded, this is key, they founded what? The Bayrock Group. Bayrock tied to Donald Trump out of Florida. Huge. Now, he began developing property in Brooklyn first, redeveloping Loham Seaport Plaza. Just so you know, that's in Sheepshead Bay, very mafia area connected. Arif was originally the sole employee of Bayrock, later hiring who? Felix Slater as managing director. In this picture, pay attention, Tawfiq's son, Afadi Arif, was president with President who? Erdogan. President Erdogan in Turkey, who Donald Trump just called, and people knocked him for calling Erdogan. I was even shocked he called Erdogan as well. Erdogan is a straight gangster terrorist. At the 9th Yalta Conference in Ukraine on 14th of September 2012, organized by oligarch Viktor Pinchuk. Now, pay very close attention to the next parts of this articles. I'm going to raise this up so people can see this right here. After moving Bayrock Group where? Trump Tower. Arif developed a relationship with who? Billionaire businessman Donald Trump. Trump provided a licensing deal for, as you just saw in my introduction by the BBC, for the Trump Soho Hotel in a joint venture between the Bayrock Group and Sapir Organization. In 2007, Bayrock funded future profits from Trump Soho and other projects in exchange. Right here, this is very important. 2007, in exchange for $50 million in financing from Icelandic company Florida Group. The arrangements led to Bayrock's finance director to file racketeering lawsuits alleging that money was diverted to people outside the company, including Salvatore Lori and associates of Saters. And I can assure you, Donald Trump is very close friends with Saters, and I'm going to show you. Here's his own business card, senior advisor to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump went on the record and stated he hardly wouldn't even recognize Felix Sater, yet he's in pictures with him all over. Serious business ties to Sater, but Sater's serious gangster. And guess who Sater is? Sater is Comey's main, and was, and still is, main rat, main snitch. He has turned serious evidence to get to who? This man up here. Mogilevich, to get to this man right here, and to get to this man right here, who in turn could even lead to Erdogan and Stiles and what's going on in Turkey. Okay? Now, it gets even better. Trump and Bayrock later developed the Trump International Hotel. So we have a corporation of Bayrock tied to Sater, tied to Russian gangsters, okay, and the Italian mafia involved in this as well, having to do with all the construction projects, etc., concrete, everything. Trump and Bayrock later developed the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Fort Lauderdale, as I showed in the clip from BBC in the beginning. Arif also worked to introduce Trump to investors from Russia through Bayrock. Arif collaborated with Trump on projects in where? Turkey, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, Arizona, Colorado, New York, and Florida. Arif is most likely an underboss and frontman for Recap Tayyip Erdogan, who in Turkey, who is General Flynn working with? Turkey. Who did General Flynn, has been confirmed by the paper, receive large payments from Turkey? General Flynn. Who did General Flynn want to smuggle out of the country? Fatah Gulen, because Fatah Gulen tried to overthrow Erdogan in a coup a while back. That's why he's being protected in the United States, you see. Our CIA, our government has been protecting Erdogan, Fatah Gulen in Pennsylvania. The man who turned Turkey into his personal criminal fiefdom. With who? I want you to pay attention now. Rex Tillerson of Exxon, now Trump's Secretary of State, has stolen $1 trillion of Middle Eastern oil since 9/11. It's true. An outstanding article came out today proving once and for all that not only should Donald Trump never have been allowed to run for president, but as early as the aftermath of the fall of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, they're claiming Donald Trump should have been in prison. VT has for the last year tied Trump and his closest associates. Guess who? Now we're going to get into more deeper shit. Jeffrey Epstein and Felix Sater. I did a special on Jeffrey Epstein a while back. I tried to explain to people. I knew people in New York who knew Jeffrey Epstein. I know Donald Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein. There's pictures of him with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay? And Felix Sater. Felix Sater used to hang with Jeffrey Epstein all the time. Jeffrey Epstein is what? Orgy Island, young children, young children at all, pedophilia, human trafficking. All of that was recorded by who? The CIA and Israel's Mossad. Fact, the whole entire island was wired up by them, and they've been using that information to blackmail and control senators, congressmen, judges, presidents at all, including Bill Clinton, heavily. Felix said it's a criminal organization so powerful, what? Pay attention to this. And this is where Turkey comes into play. They supply ISIS with Stinger missiles, and according to FBI reports, materials to make nuclear weapons as well. Can be confirmed. Now that we find that Felix Sater has for years been the most important right now, key, right here. Just Google Sater FBI informant, and you will find, fact check me, all the information you need. I'm telling you from personal knowledge. I know for a fact Sater is Comey's boy, and two others above them, and several more are ratting as we speak. But Sater's been there. Yes, Sater will deny it, but Sater has been their inside informant for a very long time. Russia knows this as well. Putin knows this as well. Now, here we go.
I'm going to interrupt, then we're going to get on with it. Now, black people, we've been running to the master pimp, talking about, let me be your hoe, let me be your hoe. And he said, no, you can't be my hoe. The more he say, no, you can't be my hoe, the more we want to be his hoe. So we, his hoe, but we on the bottom, we his bottom hoe. We in his stable. And he using us like cattle and proxies. You can't play this game with him. The only way you can win this is vote for Allah, build a nation of your own, try to be righteous.
Now we find that Felix Sater has for years been the most important FBI informant in history and has tied now President Trump to a massive criminal organization said to control the government of Russia, and now slowly bringing America into its pocket as well. Although Trump has more than once denied knowing Sater, there is no doubt they worked closely together for several years. In the 2000s, Sater occupied an office in Trump Towers just one floor below Trump. So just so you all know, many gangsters, and I know this for a fact, I've been to Trump Hotel many times, to Trump Tower. Bookies, bank, money laundering, all types in all Trump Tower. That's not saying Donald Trump knew about it, but I don't like coincidences and I don't believe in them. Okay? Many of them in my last show, I showed you how many people were set in Trump Tower and close to Donald Trump. Today's Senate hearings, this is from the last one, this is not the current one. Today's Senate hearings are all that's left of America's independence, as the head of the House investigation has, according to its own sources, joined the mob payroll as a secret late-night visit and quashed all future hearings. They're talking about Nunez, okay? This provides us useful insight and analysis, but misses a few key components as well because of the importance. We're going to cover them now. Since 1991, the Russian mafia included the bulk of Russia's KGB and hundreds of Spetsnaz assassins sought a home in the United States. They are here. And I'm telling you, the Russian mafia is dangerous. And what I'm saying to you here, I'm not going any further. I'm just telling you, these people are dangerous.
That's why they open the borders. Whole nations is here. Whole nations are crook. Gangsters.
Are much worse than Italian mafia would ever be. And Russia's good at one really good thing. Money laundering. Huge money laundering. I'm not going to go through to this huge, you can see this after I'm done. I will put it in a note. You can read this. This goes into the history of Russia's mafia and what they are in the United States. It's very good. How their business, extortion, human trafficking, prostitution, arms trafficking, drug trafficking, everything. It breaks you all down. This is a wonderful, and this is accurate. Now, I'm going to tell you how this all started with Donald Trump right now. The story essentially starts in 1983 as mob boss and attorney Ray Cohn, and I know Ray Cohn, and his protege, underboss Donnie Kitty Hands Trump. Just so you know, that is a true statement. That is what the mafia calls Donald Trump, Donnie Kitty Hands Trump. We're using mob money, mob concrete, and mob labor to build headquarters for the global criminal organization Cohen has spent 20 years building. Like I said, I'm nothing against Donald Trump using mob labor or anything that's normal New York, Atlantic City. However, Trump Tower, this is factual as well, was equipped with brothels, opium dens, gambling rooms, and plush accommodation. It populated itself with professional gamblers, thugs, fraudsters, while becoming home to a menagerie of wealthy crime figures. This is actually very true. Trump Tower became ground zero for a worldwide criminal enterprise that included Jeffrey Epstein's sex child trafficking ring and Donald Trump's property developing that was largely a front for laundering money for the mob. Now, let me explain this. As you saw in the beginning clip, Donald Trump ran out of money. Donald Trump needed help. Donald Trump got that money and got that help from the mafia, Russia. Pay attention. What I believe has happened here with this presidential election is that the FBI was already investigating from Slater, just so you know, other Russian organized crime members. During that time, they then started to pick up and started to investigate Donald Trump as well as tied to these people. When it came out that phone calls were intercepted with a FISA warrant, FISA warrant, they used this information, and then it sort of collided here because they picked up General Flynn, they unmasked General Flynn, which is a crime, but General Flynn was, and you'll see this come out in new Senate investigation hearings, and as well as in the criminal part of this against General Flynn, that General Flynn was talking to Russia, to the Russian ambassador to cut a deal. And Donald Trump, if you remember, I don't have the clip here, but I can find it for y'all, went up on his campaign trail and said, yes, we'll reduce the sanctions for Russia. If you took the time and date of that and you took the call that was intercepted from Flynn, the call was made from Flynn, then Trump went on the campaign and said in his speech that he would reduce sanctions against Russia and open up a new relationship. This is because General Flynn guaranteed Russia, i.e. Putin, that this is what Trump would do. This is what they have on General Flynn and the serious ties with Turkey and Russia, just so you know. General Flynn's in lots of trouble, and General Flynn wants to talk. But they're not giving General Flynn any immunity. That's very bad. Very bad. That means they have, and what I'm told, lots on General Flynn. Into this criminal underworld of glamour, extortion, cocaine, and depravity would walk a new cast of characters, career criminals, bent on continuing their chosen vocation in a new land. They were the former inmates of Russia's prison system, released by Gorbachev as part of his Glasnost reforms. In 1989, 71,000 Soviet Jews had been given permission to immigrate to Israel. Only 12,117 actually went to Israel. The remainder instead chose to go where? The United States. Among them was a criminal hardcore which settled in Brighton Beach, part of New York City. I know who this person is, by the way, and soon reached out to the Greek mafia in Astoria and the 5 families down where? In Little Italy. Once again, pay attention. Italian mafia, understand information. They went where? To the 5 families down in Little Italy. Go on my personal wall. You'll see me in Little Italy many times. Pictures all over. Been there, do that, hang out. Know everybody. Wonderful, great, but boom. This picture is Donald Trump with his lawyer, Ray Cohn. Now, this is the key that I was trying to tell you all before. If you read the caption on this, Cohn made Trump in the way a rabbi forms a golem from clay, facilitating all of his early business dealings through his ability to bribe or coerce anyone who stood in the way. Sorry, people, this is the cold, ugly truth. These newly arrived Russian Jewish mafia members were able to forge ties between the Jewish mafia in Russia and the organized crime world in the USA, and they were thus in place and prepared when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991 and a new era of oligarchs, corruption to the highest levels, including President Yeltsin and his prime ministers, and a wholesale looting of the post-Soviet Russian economy. The Russian Jewish mafia needed to find a way of laundering the vast wealth they were stealing from Russia, so they went looking for partners where? In the U.S. criminal underworld. They found it in the shape of Donald Trump. They also found it, if you remember a show I did, it's up on YouTube and on this wall, I think it was 3 weeks ago, showing you a recent arrest under RICO for several mobsters in the Bonanno and Gambino crime families. Those gentlemen ratted. They ratted on the Russian mafia. As I showed you in the screen, they were arrested. Then they went to the Russian mafia. The Russian mafia doesn't really talk, but they did in the form of Felix Slater et al. And Felix Slater has been feeding Comey et al. Team and the others in the 5th District, U.S. Attorney's Office, Organized Crime Division, lots of information on a regular basis. Now, as fate would have it, by 1991, according to his own admission made in his autobiography, here's Trump now, his own words. 1991, according to his own admission made in his autobiography, Trump was what? Flat broke and an utter failure as a legitimate businessman. This is his own words. This earlier successes, thanks to the mob backing of Roy Cohn, seemed to be a distant memory. However, Trump soon rose like a phoenix from the flames, and his businesses began to enjoy a huge cash flow. Trump-branded hotels, casinos became highly profitable. You want to know why? I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to confirm this. And I don't care if people want to believe me or not, because it's going to come out. It was all due to the influx of immense sums of cash from who? The Russian Jewish mafia, money stolen from the Russian economy, transferred to where? Alpha Bank. Alpha Bank. Jeff Sessions, second in command, has serious ties to Alpha Bank. Alpha Bank. Google Alpha Bank. You'll find lots of information. This is the same bank that they got the FISA warrant that was in Trump Towers, and there's another bank as well, okay, that they claim was talking back and forth, and what they considered was that way of laundering money into Trump Towers. This was all discovered by accident. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Accident. So you had this situation with Hillary Clinton. She already knew about Trump's original mafia ties. Then you had this new situation come up, and they tried in the summer and didn't get a FISA warrant. And then you had General Flynn, who they caught on NSA conversations. They used that information as well as Felix Slater's information about Trump to turn around and get a FISA warrant. From the Alpha Bank of oligarch McCall Friedman, and laundered it into the legitimate economy by the Trump organization. This is why Donald Trump does not want to show his tax return, and they're going to get it by subpoena. Trust me. However, Trump made a deal with the devil, and while it brought him great wealth, it also cost him his soul. The Russian Jewish mafia now own Donald Trump. I've been saying this for months before I showed you this article. I didn't even know that this wasn't even written then. Go back to my videos. I used to build homes for the Jewish mafia. I know the Jewish mafia well. They're very powerful people on Long Island and New York at all. Very, very powerful people. I've even had them at my home, just so everybody knows. They had made him their sukkah, or bitch, from now on. He would do their bidding. He had no other choices, as he knew who he was dealing with. Men so ruthless and powerful.
They got Farrakhan, they got Sinetta. They got all them cats in the entertainment, hip-hop world. You know, they got all them. Because who controls that? Who controls the movie? Who controls the news media? Who controls all that? And I told them over in Africa, don't trust a pale face and a smile, because they cozying up with Russia. So you got a whole lot of brothers over there in Africa that's in bed with the devil. When you're in bed with the devil, you're gonna get tagged, for a better word, lack of words. Black people over here, you can't deal with these people and come out alive or come out clean. Best to separate. Don't vote for Trump or Biden. Better vote for Allah, Master Farah Muhammad. He's the only one that can deal with him and gonna deal with him. And they know it.
That no one could stand in their way. Men who would wipe out entire families just to make a point, who valued what? Loyalty above else. And people ask, has Donald Trump been compromised? Donald Trump is owned. If Trump ever betrayed, and I'm going to tell you this myself, if Trump ever dreamed of betraying them, he would soon learn that sukkah has a dual meaning. It also means rat, as in someone who sells out and becomes an informer to the authorities in the gulags. Sukkah did not last long once discovered and inevitably met horrific ends. This is from history. This is in the gulags. They're cutting somebody in half with a raw sword. Sukkah means hideous deaths at the hands of the Jewish mafia. Jewish mafia, dangerous, dangerous people. I will not mention a family that I built homes for on here, and it is something I will just not do. This marriage between the Trump organization and the Russian Jewish mafia that began as money laundering operation and enabled the asset stripping of the post-Soviet Russian economy has grown and now become the biggest security concern. not just for the United States, but the entire world, a concern that dwarfs ISIS 1,000,000 times over. As I've tried to tell you all, this was about money. This was about power. This was about Russia coming into the United States and taking over, along with China. Trump, his tattered empire and those around him were hijacked by the most powerful criminal organization known to mankind. They became vassals of the Russian Jewish mafia. Their wealth depended on them. Their continued survival contingent on remaining in their good books. This organization sold nuclear missiles through where? Ukraine. Paul Manafort tied together. He's in a lot of trouble too. And his partner just sold him out. He's the one that recently registered as a registered foreign agent. Paul Manafort is yet to register because he's trying to cut a deal, and I know for a fact that they almost had a proffer agreement with Paul Manafort with the FBI to talk. The organization sold nuclear missiles through Ukraine, stole 350 matched nuclear pits from the U.S. stockpiles at Pantex. This is an organization that not only ate Trump, but took control of Israel's what? As I've always talked about, Mossad, India's RAW, RAW security agency, and ran roughshod over the FBI and its British French equivalents. That's how deep. This is the real deep state, a product of Russia's gulags, a nuclear-armed crime ring capable of threatening world leaders, collapsing markets, and staging any level of terror attack anywhere at any time. This is correct. This is true news, and this is what we're dealing with, on top of the shadow government and those within not just the CIA, NSA at all, but this. And congressmen, senators at all are owned by these individuals, and they are in our CIA, they're in the FBI, they are in everywhere. This is what is now controlling the United States through an iron grip of Trump. They have the orange one by the balls, as he says here. He is their suka, as I said. The Russian Jewish mafia has made the entire United States population its bitches. They are slowly turning the U.S. into one giant gulag, and I can't think of anything worse than to be a bitch in a gulag. I agree. It gets worse.
The FBI is investigating whether anyone working for Donald Trump's presidential campaign colluded with Russia. Russia is accused of interfering in the election. USA Today has looked at public documents that show business ties between Trump and properties bearing his name and wealthy people from Russia and the former Soviet Union who have been accused of money laundering and allegedly having connections to organized crime. The White House referred our questions to the Trump Organization, which said Trump and his company worked through middlemen and never had any transactions with these individuals. Steve Hall, a former CIA chief of Russian operations, and Kenneth McCallion, a former prosecutor who represented private clients in a lawsuit against Trump's partners, told us that Russian government officials use criminal organizations to enrich themselves, and wealthy Russian investors in Western countries sometimes act on behalf of the Russian government. McCallion alleges that Trump's real estate empire depends on hundreds of millions of dollars provided by Russians who may be under Russian President Vladimir Putin's thumb, giving Putin leverage in his dealings with President Trump. Over the years, Trump and his son, Donald Trump Jr., traveled to Russia to meet with rich Russians about business opportunities and to market condominiums to them. Several other Trump condo buyers were accused in federal indictments of money laundering on behalf of Russian criminal organizations.
Wow. As Trump lost access to traditional lines of credit, this is true. I know this to be true. This is when he had these issues with casinos and all these problems and bankruptcies. As Trump lost access to traditional lines of credit, his desperate need for financing led to sources that are murky best, including monies traceable back to the former Soviet Union. According to 2 pages of Trump's 2005 tax returns, reportedly sent anonymously to reporter David K. Johnson, Trump appeared to make an enormous amount of money that year, earning him more than $150 million. That put him in a tiny class of super rich Americans, probably numbered in a dozen. Trump's windfall seems to have developed around the same time that investors from countries of the former Soviet Union started opening the cash spigot to the U.S. Now, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch with FBI Director James Comey and U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. This gentleman right here, as I talked today about in my video, Preet Bharara is this man on the right-hand side. He got fired by Trump with Sessions fired him. Let me bring the picture down so you can see it. Sorry. Preet Bharara, if you remember, Preet. It's not Pete, it's Preet. Preet Bharara, right there on the right. This gentleman, if you remember when he got fired from Trump, he stayed a day later. He refused to leave. The reason why he refused to leave is he copied all of his documents because he was, in fact, investigating Donald Trump and organized crime under RICO Act. Sally Yates can testify to this as well, just so you know. She's set to testify before the Senate Investigation Committee, some in public, some in private. Preet Bharara gave these documents to the New York State Attorney General, who is now and was, and now is even more thoroughly investigating into wanting to bring a RICO case against Donald Trump, his sons, et al. Now, right here, this is what he did. Preet Bharara, a 2013 indictment of the illegal high-stakes card games organizers brought by U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara alleged not only high-stakes illegal gambling and the laundering of approximately $100 million, but also extortion, as ring members used threats to force to strip money and property from clients. One of the operations leaders, Almazan Tamarchik Tokatov, an alleged international crime boss, admitted to Mogilevich Lieutenant Yaponchik Ivankov, who is noted as was found living in Trump Tower at one point. That is true. Ivankov lived in Trump Tower. All these Russians at one point lived in Trump Tower, or operated out of there. If you believe that's a coincidence, then I'll sell you another bridge. Managed the ring from afar. He could not legally enter the U.S. and was already wanted on charges of trying to bribe ice skating jobs at the 2002 Winter Olympic Games in Salt Lake City. He has often been tied to the boss of bosses, the main guy I keep telling you that they want to get, Mogilevich. Bharara, who Trump, here it is, recently fired after accepting the resignations of other U.S. attorneys left from the Obama administration, is not only the only big name who was involved in investigating the ongoings in Trump Tower. Former U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch, who I can't stand and who is a liar and who has definitely let Hillary Clinton go. And believe me, by no means do I think that Hillary Clinton and all these people should be tried. Hillary Clinton, Podesta, they all should be gone down. And Comey for failure to do it and deliberately not doing it. But this is a key point here. Former U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch also played a part. Lynch, first a prosecutor and then a U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. That's where I was telling you I was involved with the FBI, Eastern District of New York, who have had knowledge of FBI operations that involve Sater, there's the key name, the Russian mobster turned what? Cooperating witness. If he, Sater, was sitting in a room right now, Donald Trump said, he wouldn't know what he looked like. We already proved that's not true. This is why I'm getting angrier and angrier, because I know this stuff is. While Sater has recently been the subject of some news coverage, his name came up during the march. Here it is. If you remember, what Senate the House Intelligence Committee public hearing. His name came up during the March 20 House Intelligence Committee public hearing on Russia when Representative Eric Swalwell asked FBI Director James Comey about him. Here's the key. When they start to ask about these individuals, then you know they're already under investigation. No thorough exploration of the Bureau's dealings with this key informant has been published until now. We know that since 1983, Trump Tower has been bugged. This is true. So this is what Trump's talking about he's tapping his phones and wires and that, because it has been bugged. Not just for Trump. I mean, for all these other people. Okay? that are resided in, or meaning rented space, Alpha Banks there, all this is there. This is not, so people, let's get this straight. This is not made up CIA bullshit crap. This is true, okay? And when I'm told from people in New York who are the powerful, they say, Scott, this is what's happening, and they're all, I'm telling you now, there are many in the Italian mafia, Russian mafia, and Jewish mafia, and many have left. Russian mafia, top guys have left the country already if they're able to. Same thing with Jewish mafia, Russian Jewish mafia ties, Italians out of the country, gone, because they know Rico's coming. Trump Tower has been bugged as headquarters for gambling, child prostitution, fraud, extortion, and murder. We also know that by 1992, the Gulag Mafia and KGB have taken over New York City organized crime, and with it control of New York City's political scene, as well as including the NYPD and the New York State legislation in Albany. What isn't told is that they also picked up on key members of, here, pay attention, of Congress. Congress has been bought and paid for, fed to them by their partners in the powerful Turkish and Israeli lobbies. Jared Kushner, just so you know, Kushner's tied with all of this. Control of key committee chairs in both parties. These senators and House representatives they controlled allowed them to subvert and eventually penetrate the FBI, the Justice Department, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the DEA, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. You think the Muslim Brotherhood is deep in the swamp? Think again. It's both. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You have two factions colliding here. You have two within this swamp and in deep state shadow government. There's two of them, and they're at war right now. You have that of the Obama side, and now of this oligarch side that's been in there, and now Trump is in there. So what you're having now is a battle, and this is what's going on here. The Gulag Mafia was allowed to establish banks, open investment houses, write their own regulations, even investigate their own wrongdoing. When sued, and Trump and his associates have been sued countless times for endless failed projects, which is true, just so you all know. Plaintiff attorneys were threatened or bought, or often as not mob-owned judges, like that of the Godfather film, simply threw the cases out. I can attest to this personally. I know for a fact, and I'm not going to say names or anything, but judges are paid off. Federal, state, doesn't matter, are paid off on a regular basis. John Gotti was key for that, as well as jury members bought at all. Again.
Y'all know that. Y'all could tell by the way what's happening with Trump. You know, they bought off all them judges. But it's a battle going on, like he said. Both of them are evil. And y'all gonna vote for who y'all think is the less evil, but you don't really know, because both of them evil. Y'all just want to vote for the winning side. Y'all don't want to vote for Allah. Y'all want to vote for whoever wins. That's my black people.
Donald Trump has faced some serious backlash, as you know, for some of the things he has said on the campaign trail. But this morning, he could be in hot water for what he said under oath before running for office about his relationship with a convicted felon who once was tied to organized crime. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross is here with that story. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Robin. With the possible exceptions of George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, American politicians have a well-established record of outrageous statements and stretching the truth. But in the case of Donald Trump, his critics now say he's crossed the line between stretching the truth and telling lies. Trump's statements about Muslims and the 9/11 attacks have raised the biggest questions about his truthfulness, including his unsupported and widely denied claim that thousands of Arabs in New Jersey celebrated after the attacks.
Thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was
coming down. Then Trump went after a reporter, Serge Kovaleski, who said Trump was wrong about the alleged New Jersey celebration, appearing to mock Kovaleski and his disability.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
Trump said he wasn't mocking the reporter because he did not know what he looked like.
I don't know him.
But the reporter said they met many times and were once on a first-name basis. Now there are questions about what Trump said under oath in a civil lawsuit about one of the people who helped develop the Trump Soho Hotel and condominium in New York City, the man on the right with Trump at the hotel launch party.
This is not fake news. And if one of my volunteers just said that, whoever volunteer just said that, Dawn, get him out of the back. This is not fake news. I'm not bringing you fake news. People better wake up, okay? Because when it hits the public scene, and it's already starting to, just like people said there's no such thing, RICO's not going to be involved in Donald Trump. What happened today at the Senate Investigation Committee? Senator Whitehouse. Comey, is there a RICO involved in this? Never said before. Never mentioned before. And the last the congressional hearing in March mentioned who? Felix Slater. Pay attention. Not fake news. Truth. People live, head, sand. Don't want to believe the truth. Do not want to believe the truth. Where that didn't happen, Felix Slater's FBI handlers began phony criminal investigations, putting the force of the Justice Department behind the Gulag's mafia reign of terror that continues today. Felix Slater is the key. They want somebody bigger. That's who they're protecting, who I showed you up here. Let's see. Is this fake news? Donald Trump at Roy Cohen. Go see who Donald Trump's attorney is. Roy Cohen. I'm telling you, I sat down. I know this man. This gangsters. This is a big attorney. You just don't have Roy Cohen as your attorney. Straight gangster attorney. You're talking bigger than John Gaudi's attorney. Okay? Major players here. Major Jewish Russian mafia. I'm putting my neck out here even going over this, but I don't care because I'm not saying anything that's not already public. Okay? Well, I sort of did, but point being, this is not fake news. Slater is not fake news. Roy Cohen is not fake news. These are I don't know how much more people, evidence, and information you need to see. The reason behind all of this is explained above was money laundering, and this is what they're going after. Alpha Bank. And just so you all know, you can Google what I'm going to tell you now. A senator by the name of Quigley, recently from the Senate Investigation Committee, got on a plane and went to where? Cyprus, to go look at bank documents at a Cyprus bank. Cyprus is known for major Russian money laundering. Okay? So you tell me the Senate Investigation Committee Quigley just got on a plane for the hell of it to go all the way to Cyprus, get documents, and he says he's got to go back and get more information. Okay? And then bring this forward. It's going to show you that this is what they're going for. They're going to show that Russia funneled money through Cyprus to all of this. This is what's happening behind the scenes. So if you guys can take it or leave it, I don't care. But at least give me the respect when it does come out that it's true. Say, hey, Scott, I'm sorry it's true. That's all I ask. Anyway, the reason behind all this is explained above was money laundering, Ponzi schemes, pump and dump frauds, and seemingly end a series of real estate investment scams to carry the Trump, Bayrock, Kushner names. Now, what just came out about Jared Kushner, Soros, as I told you, there's more coming. Kushner is involved in all of this. Just Google Bayrock. See who owns Bayrock. That's part of my next show. I'm going to show you and bring you who Bayrock is, who it's tied to. You can find this in corporate documents. Now, the FBI and Department of Justice with Trump Lieutenant Felix Slater as an informant could have brought it all down, except for one thing. While the FBI and Justice Department turned Felix Slater, Slater aided the powerful AIPAC lobby in Washington and actually turned, this is key to this, actually turned both the FBI and Justice Departments and put those assigned to the case on the payroll of the Russian mafia. That's how big this is. FBI and Justice Department officials are on the Russian mafia payroll. So we have a situation where the FBI agents who investigated Trump became his personal security guards, just so you know. I proved this yesterday. So we have a situation where the FBI agents who investigated Trump became his personal security guards during the campaign and on demand made gratuitous pronouncements about his innocence. This is a true quote from Donald Trump, just so you all know that I'm going to show you right here. On his pedophile ring billionaire friend Jeffrey Epstein, and I know for a fact Trump knew Epstein associated with him, seen them in the Hamptons many times, doesn't matter. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and that some are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys a social life. Donald Trump 2002. That is a correct quote. And one thing I hate is pedophilia. And if you all don't think that I'm pissed off about all of this, okay, and more shit is coming in, and I'm being then shown things, and then I make a phone call, then I check this stuff, but I actually shouldn't say that. Never mind. But anyway, and the U.S. attorneys involved, except for Loretta Lynch, and recently fired Preet Bharara, went to work. Now, I want you to pay for this. I want you to understand this. This is how screwed up and deep this shit is. The U.S. attorneys involved, except for Loretta Lynch, and recently fired Preet Bharara, okay, who claims to have been investigating Trump, hating Trump, went to work for law firms controlled now, wait for it, the Gulag Mafia, i.e. the Russian Mafia. This is where our quiet excellence story comes up short, where it is easily seen that individuals like Department of Labor head Acosta, you know who he is? Appointed by Donald Trump, Acosta, the man who saved Trump and Epstein from decades in prison for child rape and murder, moved into a cabinet post. Do you all know who Acosta is? Google Donald Trump's department head, Acosta. Very close with Jeffrey Epstein at all. The extent of what these others have done is too frightening to be published until now. Our sources tell us that while the FBI and Justice Department protected Sater as a key informant, as I told you, they had actually sabotaged case after case against Trump and his Russian friends, keeping them briefed, giving them names of potential witnesses, many of them who suffered unusual fates and ran investigations over a cliff. Every document, every source, every bit of information the FBI and the Justice Department have accumulated in over 30 years of investigation of one of the largest criminal organizations worldwide have for years now been turned over the moment they were received. This is how deep this shit is. Much less than 6 degrees of separation while all this high-stakes maneuvering between U.S. and Russia over Ukraine was unfolding. The Department of Justice and FBI were hard at work to prevent the Sater Trump story from becoming widely known. Why? That's Comey. Can't discuss this. Can't talk about this. Can't do that. Because Sater, and if you listen to Comey today, he had to make a choice, sacrifice this, do this. I have to make a decision to protect the ongoing investigations because they want this man. Not just Ray Cohen. They want these guys. One, Arif, Friedman, and most of all, Mogilevich. This guy here. Mogilevich is who they're really after. And how RICO works is they'll bust every one of these guys to get to this man and to get to Putin. But you're not, I'm telling you. And now Artigan is involved. This is no joke here. Okay, and if people think this is fake, they got to be kidding me. So it's all good. You can't make up pictures with Slater. You can't make up business cards with him. You can't make up, you can't. This is not some big, Now, a number of key law enforcement figures associated with Sater's role as a government informant have continued protecting him, which has inevitably helped to keep under wraps the criminal goings-on in Trump Tower. One of these figures even went on to work for Trump. Here he is, FBI Special Agent Gary Uher, as I showed a picture on my other show, not only investigated alongside fellow agent Leo Tadeo, okay, the earlier pump and dump case that originally snared Sater. That's how they got Sater, and that's how the FBI turned him. He also apparently served as one of Sater's handlers. In other words, when you're in protective custody and you're working with the FBI, you have handlers. Like mine was Special Agent Douglas Leff and William Powell. After Uher retired from the Bureau's New York office, this is very important. Uher retired from the Bureau's New York office in 2011. Where did he go to work? He went to work in the private security business with another FBI agent in a firm named Exmark, which became one of the small army of private security firms that did what? Guarded Donald Trump during the presidential campaign. Neither Uher or Tadeo responded in requests for comment. So now, if you all think that's a coincidence, you all better take your head out of the sand. Do you understand the ties and how deep this is? And you want to ask how come Hillary Clinton's not been prosecuted? Because her ties are just as bad. That's the problem. The swamp is super deep. Super deep. In fact, both Exmark and Uher personally began receiving payments. This is a fact. You can check this. Personally began receiving payments from the campaign as soon as Trump announced in June 15. Uher's name surfaced in the press a handful of times, sometimes in allegations that he did what? Roughly handled protesters at Trump rallies. Yet until now, no one has pointed out that before he went to work for Trump, he was who? He ran Felix Sater, excuse me. He was the guy who took care of Sater in protective custody, kept him, blah, blah, blah. As for Tadeo in July 2016, just almost a year ago, as talk of possible efforts by the Kremlin to help Trump's campaign continue to pick up steam, the Washington Post ran a story that downplayed the possibility and quoted the ex-agent, now in the private sector. This is not Putin trying to help Trump, he said. The article identified Tadeo as a former FBI special agent in charge of cyber and special operations in New York. It did not tell readers he had been Sater's former FBI handler when Sater worked with Trump. The paths of other central characters in the case are also curious. Two of Loretta Lynch's colleagues at the Eastern District U.S. Attorney's Office, Leslie Caldwell and Kelly Ann Moore, left government service to join the law firm of Morgan, Lewis, and Balkias. I brought this up in my other show. And both represented Sater at his 2009 sentencing hearing. Caldwell returned to the government work in late 2013 when she was tapped to serve as assistant attorney general for the criminal division, the number 3 position in the Justice Department. Moore is still at Morgan Lewis. The firm was hired post-election by Trump. This same firm was hired post-election by Trump to sort out ethical issues concerning possible conflicts of interest, which, considering this history, takes on a whole new meaning. Neither Caldwell nor Moore responded to requests for comment. Of course they didn't. Trump's announcement that he had retained Morgan Lewis as ethics counsel was clearly meant to blunt calls for disinvestment or use of blind trust for the oversight of his business. This law firm is the one who put together Trump's famous trust, where his businesses are now held. Curiously, on the same day that Trump made the announcement, the Moscow office of Morgan Lewis was named Russian Law Firm of the Year for 2016 by an industrial association. By entrusting Morgan Lewis with addressing his conflicts, Donald Trump, and presumably demanding confidential agreements in the process, as is his practice, was Trump insulating himself from the release of information that would reveal the true nature of his financial relationship with Sater, Bayrock, and others. Such revelations would have exposed Sater's criminal history, his interactions with Trump, and the full scope of Bayrock's financial arrangements with the Trump Organization, and perhaps true sources of Bayrock financing, and would be covered by attorney-client privilege. So in other words, they're all covered. Now, since publishing this article, USA Today published their own findings on Trump. The issue with all 3 pieces is timing and the oft-mentioned constitutional crisis that Rep. Devin Nunes Nunez, idiot he is, I agree with that, has no idea he's pushing America, what he's pushing America to. There's no easy way of this, out of this kind of thing, not a new constitutional convention when the failings of the old one make even thinking about it a disaster. We've ended up with an illegal standing army. We now have virtual royalty. We have a central bank. We have a national police force. We have a Congress based on reappointment that is well outside the equality protections. The Constitution has failed us despite pronouncements by George Soros to the contrary. George Soros just doesn't get it. To top-level decision makers and some of those still in government, the hierarchy of non-state players, secret societies, terror groups, and rogue intelligence agencies, banking cartels as described in detail above, the multi-generational organized crime, when paired with multinational corporations, overshadows any world government and enfeebles as well. If any nation controlling as few as a dozen people can turn government, and its large and powerful nations like the United States. In the U.S., the lockstep enforced discipline of the GOP made this easy. A party made up of Wall Street, defense, and oil industry types who filled Congress with hillbillies and hacks. Told everybody Congress and Senate is owned. When Americans look to the likes of Senators McCain and Graham for leadership and judgment, terms like insanity and desperation come to mind, for sure. Neither is sound with McCain, the more intelligent of the two. Graham is purely delusional and endlessly corrupt, with McCain beyond redemption, and they are, the GOP side, the best of the lot. That's a scary thought. Our hypothesis on what it takes to control government is significant. What can be done in each case has been done. There are no independent leaders out there there may be very few exceptions. Watchers continue to focus on Putin, and we are among them. He's by far the most consistent, fought by American standards, heavy-handed domestically. Not so much to make excuses, but in the real world, seeming weak in disaster, those around you wait for signs and descend like jackals. This is what kept Assad from disassembling his family hold in Syria, something we know he planned. The disaster Syria faces today would quite well have been 1,000 times worse if he had allowed extensive reforms. This is simply how things are, like leaving the door open to the chicken coop. The Trump issue in the U.S. is unprecedented. The electorate, by a moderate but firm majority, never supported him. He lost the popular vote by millions, his own base falling apart. No more a sign of American failures than sounding extremism and decades of propagandization. The opinions, military overthrow, impeachment, assassination. I'm just telling you this. This is what the man is saying. Each becomes more likely as business as usual in Washington is threatened by bad leadership and signs Trump may not only be psychopath, but unpredictable as well. Now, what is clear, and I agree in this article, is there is a dual game here. Trump's move thus far are not what they're saying here. What I believe is going on here is I believe that Trump is compromised, and he's doing what he has to do to follow these people. He's owned. He's owned. He's owned. There's several other articles here. I'll put them up with it. Why can't the FBI tell on Trump Russia? Well, the Federal Bureau of Investigation cannot tell us, and this is what I've been saying to you, the Federal Bureau of Investigation cannot tell us what we need to know about Donald Trump's contacts with Russia. Why? Because doing so would jeopardize a long-running, ultra-sensitive operation targeting mobsters tied to Russian President Vladimir Putin and to Trump. But the Fed's stonewalling risks something far more dangerous. Failing to resolve a crisis of trust in America's president. Who, what, where, and why provides the details of a 2-month investigation in this 6,500-word expose. The FBI apparently knew, directly or indirectly, based upon available facts, that prior to Election Day, Trump and his campaign had personal and business dealings with certain individuals and entities linked to criminal elements, including reputed Russian gangsters connected to Putin. The same facts suggest that the FBI knew or should have known enough prior to the election to justify informing the public, and they brought that up today. Why didn't Comey let the public know about Trump, but they let them know about Clinton? About its ongoing investigation of potentially compromising relationship between Trump, Putin, and Russian mobsters, even if it meant losing or exposing a valuable informant. It will take an agent independent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And as I told you, they now are demanding today that Donald Trump, they're demanding today that Donald Trump, that a special investigator be called, and it's the only way to ensure this investigation into Russia. I'm telling you the most important part of all this. The feds can run circles around this. They do not own the New York State Attorney General. This man does not like Trump. This man, I'm afraid something's probably going to happen to the guy. I'm telling you, this is serious people here. These are serious players. This is serious, and the swamp is very deep. So what America can do, and the voters who voted for Donald Trump is do what? Hold the president like we should and not get personal with the guy. Hold the president accountable for his promises. Hold Congress accountable for to make sure that they carry out the right bills at all, as well as the Senate. Until America does that, this swamp is going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, I've tried to tell you the truth. I'm trying to tell you what's coming. I'm telling you the truth. I know for a fact that what I've just told you is correct. I know a lot, and I'm not saying anymore, and I will not say anymore, period. I'm telling you, when Donald Trump lost his money with these casinos at all, this is when this happened. He got sucked in, and this is how Russia and mafia works. How the mafia works is very simple. If they see somebody that they know that they can take advantage of and get a hold of when they're in a desperate need, they will do it. And this is what they did with Donald Trump, and basically he sold his soul to the devil. Sorry to tell you. And once you're in and you owe that kind of money and you get involved in these kind of things, you're in forever. They own you, and now this man is president of the United States. Just like Kennedy, his father got him in. But one thing about JFK did not know that his father used his mafia ties to get him elected until after he was elected, and he was furious about it when he found out, as well as Bobby Kennedy was as well. Bobby Kennedy will go down in history as one of the best attorney generals in the United States, because Bobby Kennedy, and I've even heard this word from old-time gangsters, mob bosses. That man was ruthless. He was coming for the Italian mob, and this is what happened. The father went to JFK and said, wait a second, you got to back off. You got to get Bobby. You got to get back off. This is when JFK found this out. Okay, and Hoover hated Bobby. Okay? No, anything I'm telling you on here is true. You don't want to believe it, and if you're one of my volunteers making them comments, you're getting the fuck off of here. Okay? I don't do fake news. If you want to live in denial, go right ahead. Knock yourselves out. Because I could tell you mafia stories that make your head spin. I've seen people hung out of 14, 15-story windows by their ankles. Okay? Hanging. Okay? Hanging. Dragged out the window. Smashed the glass. Here, hang out your window. Okay? You owe us money. You want to get your money? Open the safe. Pay attention. Okay? I've seen many, many things and been associated. And the FBI knows this, so it doesn't matter. I'm not hiding anything. Nor did I rat on anybody. So I'm just telling you. Okay? That ABC story is not fake. You know, this is the problem here. And this fake news situation is the problem. Not everything is fake news. Understand this. You know, these liberal agencies, and I got to say this in somewhat of a defense. Yes, CNN, these companies, are they liberal based? Or the Clinton News Network, do they push everything against Donald Trump? Yes. However, within these agencies are some very good investigative journalists and reporters. Okay, investigative journal and journalists. They do not all lie. It's not all fake news. This is not all BS. All you got to do is use your common sense, connect the dots. I'll put this up I'm going to put this in a note. Do your own homework and see if I'm right or I'm wrong. I know for a fact I'm right because I know these people. So people have got to hold Trump accountable. And I am not talking about the FBI. Screw the FBI. I'm not talking about the rest of this. I'm talking about the American people. Okay? He's not a god. I'm trying to tell you that. He's been put up on this podium, and I respect the man. But just like Sean Hannity said, I will hold, and he's very close with Donald Trump, we will hold our president accountable for his promises. So, and then you have this situation where Hillary thought she was going to win. She was guaranteed to win, and it got fucked up. And you know how it got fucked up? Just pay attention to what I just told you there. There's no coincidences here. And when you see Trey Gowdy come on a sit show, and it's the first time Trey Gowdy's ever said it. He was on Tucker last night, and he said, Tucker asked him about the investigation into Russia and this and that. Trey Gowdy said, no, the DNC, the hacking of the DNC by the Russians is a serious concern of mine. Listen to what the man said. The man sees documents, sees information that others do not see. This is the world today. This is how deep and corrupt it is. This is serious stuff. People want to go out there and go blah, blah, blah. And guess what's even more serious? Do you know North Korea is getting ready to just so you know, Kim is getting ready to test another nuke. So be prepared. If the man tests that nuke, it's coming. And do I think Kim should be eliminated? Of course. And don't anybody call me a liberal. I'm not a liberal. I can't stand it. I'm a factualist. I'm going to bring you the truth. That's it. And I like Trump. Believe me. Listen, I like Donald Trump. But one thing I will not put up with, and if this information, and I'm waiting for some other information, and it has to do with, there could be something else that happened here, where the FBI news and the CIA had this information on Trump, you see. And then when Hillary Clinton got to this point of forever breakdown and not going to win, as you saw in this July situation, went from July on, because of Flynn et al., Trump, that they could have used this information that they had because of Sater giving the FBI all this other information. The FBI already knew this. This has been ongoing investigations with Russia and Trump, those in Trump Tower et al. It's true. This has been ongoing. Before Trump was even going to decide to run. What I'm believing is that they knew of this and then decided, wait a second, we can use this and spin this on Trump to go where Hillary Clinton came out today and say Russia interfered with the elections, hacked the DNC. And then if we go into Guccifer 2, I do not believe Guccifer 2 is tied to Russia at all. I think Guccifer 2, and if you look at the information, it's part of another show I'm going to be doing, you're going to see that Guccifer is really most likely came from, you know where I think it came from? Guccifer 2, I believe, came from Joe Biden and team at the White House. And that's who I think Guccifer 2 is. Okay? Because I believe they knew this, and this is where you get Obama's team saying, we wanted to preserve all this information about Trump, Russia, okay, and Trump's dealings with Russia and all this other situation, because what they did was Trump's tower was already under investigation. The bank was Alpha Bank, all these other places were already under investigation, which had nothing to do with a FISA warrant, okay? They had normal warrants on them, meaning wiretaps on them from the FBI. Then they used this information from those taps, from Sater et al. And then when Flynn, here's the deal. Once Flynn made those phone calls and the NSA picked it up and Obama opened the doorway up to get this leaks to go out everywhere, and Trump still has not reversed that executive order, and that's very bizarre. Donald Trump has still not reversed the executive order that Obama did roughly 12 to 16 days before he went out. I have to look at the exact date. With Loretta Lynch opening up the NSA information so it went to all 17 agencies. Excuse me, all 16 agencies. And that made information available for leakers all over the place. So, I'm telling you, I'm going to put this article in our note, a note on Facebook, and thank God we're having our news network and our blog coming up and all that stuff. I'm very happy. So, and I can't wait to bring guests on and all of that stuff. Please, I'm telling you to digest this. I'm not against Trump at all. I'm for holding our president accountable, and this is serious to me because I know these people involved in this. These people are powerful people. This is not a game. This is serious swamp stuff, and I've even been watching what I'm saying, and I'm telling you that because one thing I'll take shit to the deathbed with me. I do not care. Okay, I'm old school. And as I said, I know what the Bundys are going through, and I'm actually probably going to do a show tomorrow night on the Bundys. There's a lot that people need to know there, and these men are suffering in a jail. They've been thrown in the hole. That family needs help, and I know what it's like to be in their position and falsely accused of that. I wasn't accused by the federal government, but on the state level, same thing. Mine was not for any violence or conspiracies or anything. It was just white-collar, violent crime. So that's okay. I get it. And I do not know, as I said, yes, Billy Roger Stone, I'll just say, Roger Stone was at my first march. I know a lot about Roger Stone. Roger Stone, close to Nixon. This is, I'll leave it at that. And when Roger Stone, and this is why the Senate Investigation Committee is bringing Roger Stone in, because Roger Stone was Donald Trump's attorney. Roger Stone has has a client, and there's a new movie coming out. I think it's out already this week or next week from Netflix about Roger Stone being the one that got Donald Trump into politics. Just so you know that. So it's a movie you may want to watch. It's going to be a misrepresentation of several things. It could be a very good movie as well. I like Roger Stone. However, all these players, and this is why I say to people out there, and I showed you my history in the beginning, and when you see my book and all the evidence that's going to come, pictures with me, with mafia guys, me on the run, listen, there's a lot there. I have the tapes. I have it all. I saved everything because I knew one day, once I was falsely accused of this, I started to save everything. Everything, including stuff from the FBI. And then I have my daughter's mom, who's a very good witness, Christine. She saved lots of things. She was a part of this. Once people see all the true evidence and see what's happening here and see what happened with me, this is why I hate corruption all the time. I'll tell you anything I've done wrong. I could care less. There's no big frauds. There's no big cons. I could care less. Shell companies. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they're in the wrong league. They're very much in a wrong league. Huge league. Big league. Wrong league. They're messing and getting involved and trying to say stuff and stuff that's not true. I do not have to rob anybody. Okay? And people can say as they wish, why do you do this? Why do that? I have a reason for everything. And that's my business. Okay? But one thing I will not do is let them, these very good people who are part of MFA, who have put their faith and trust in me and pay attention, and I will bring down the liars, the haters, and it's going to be bigly. Promise. Just want to make that clear in this video. So, yes, pray for Ammon and Nicole in Nevada jail. This is very serious what's going on with the Bundys, and it is, and happening in New Orleans. Now, I've been on live on the show, so I don't know what's happening in New Orleans. Karen, how do I feel about Robert Steele? I'm not saying anything. I'm going to be in New York seeing Robert Steele. I believe it's next week. So you'll be seeing me shooting live from there. Okay, and I'm going to ask Robert to come on as a guest. And the reason why I'm not sitting on a beach somewhere, okay, doing nothing, or just wrote a book and stick it out there and not doing that is because I hate corruption. I want the world to know the truth of what I went through. I want the world to know my mistakes, my successes, my failures. And if I can help save one person from going through what I went through and what I've done or made a mistake on or been successful with, then I will do that. And that's the reason, whatever that reason is, that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what I'm going to do, despite haters, despite whatever they want to believe, despite whatever they're going to do. I don't care. I really don't care. And I welcome. Yeah. Yeah, I want. Can I? God bless.
I want you, the white people, to know that I am not here trying to make fun of you or criticize your power. You did an extremely job. With almost nothing. This is in honor to you. What I say, I hope you don't take it for fun or for mock. After that you had fallen from the paradisal garden, you went in the caves of Europe, lost all knowledge of your civilization, had no literature. We, and my father, when I say that, the scientists of my people strip your people of all literature so that you have nothing to guide yourself. And you without a guide. For 2,000 years, so God has taught me. And we find these things is true. Without any guide at all. And you become a human beast-like. You have your picture. You have everything to prove the truth. That this is true. You are the people from your king's parents. You are. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm just only trying to tell the truth. And which you know. You have nearly got even with us, with my father. Because you have pushed us for 400 years and made us almost savages. But I must say, today is a day of awakening. We are coming to the knowledge of truth. And you cannot deal with us like you did when we were dumb. We want to separate. Education banishes savage. Know becomes real and understanding. But this that you have been out of the hills, cave sides of Europe, you have filled the world that was not equal by any of yours in the past. But you didn't build a world out of our history. We had scientists on this earth that built civilization as you have learned it. That was far more powerful civilization, far more powerful government, far more beautiful government, far more scientific government than you have built. But I say you have this wonder. When it comes to building, you have went extremely into the voice, best science that the people of this period are in this, we say, science of history that our fathers wrote out. Than any other scientist that we know of. We give you credit. You have taken up the man off of his feet. The wheel in truth, absolutely space. You have going trouble. You build you a heaven, and you made us a hell. That is true. And every way we could. You found us, you had the power to do it, you had the wisdom to do it, and we followed every tune of your music. The dance part. Yes, sir. When I said to you, white people, that we are a wicked love. And it's our time. And we shall rule.
I got the power.
The Holy One is a book or a scripture in which you don't know anything about. But it verifies the Bible. And the Bible verifies the Quran. The Quran is a late scripture. Revealed to Muhammad. And that was around 1400 years ago near. But I would say to you, if I wanted to candidate the author of it, who made the Bible, I would say first. Who made the Bible? Did the white people make it or did black people make it? Who made the Holy Quran? You say, Muhammad. Muhammad will say to you, it was revealed to me. But who was the revealer? Oh yeah, we want to act some of these know-alls. If you think a spook came down to Moses, ask and question what Moses said. The spook said to him, spirits don't talk like that. Moses said that he met God. And that when he met God, God told him, when Moses asked who you are, who shall I tell them who you are? He was so mighty in wisdom and in strength. He just told Moses, tell him I am that I am. That's a mighty man. I'm not particular about whether they know me or not, but I am that I am. And when I let go I am, they will know who it is.
It's been a long one. Salam alaikum.